Folks, there is some room upstairs if you want to watch it on the screens. We're going to start here, and the first thing will be the Clean and Green folks will be up and talking about that in Watertown here. But if you want to go upstairs and watch on the big screen TV, you're more than welcome to do that. And then the second thing on the item will be the Hockey Association wants to discuss sheet of ice for skating. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Monday, April 7th work session of the City Council. At this time, I will call our meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is the Clean and Green. Thanks,
Okay.
Eileen and Tim.
Are we on here? Great. Thanks very much, Mayor Thorson, for letting us speak to you right away here. Just want to briefly let you know what's going on this spring. Our Clean and Green Spring Litter Blitz is happening April 26th through Saturday, May 3rd. Just to kind of give you an idea on the organization, we've got the H2O 25 spokes of the wheel, safe and attractive neighborhoods and business districts. Under that is Keeping Watertown Beautiful, and under that is our Clean and Green Action Committee that has been doing a lot of work around town. Some committee members that are here today, my cohort, Tim Sheehan here, Barb Brinkman, Chris Fye, Carol Piper, Gail Wall, and Vivian Westgard. Thanks for coming, you guys. So we had a beautiful day yesterday, today, and now the snow is melting and the litter is showing up, right? Looking forward to flowers and green grass, but we don't want to see the litter blowing across the landscape. We want to take pride in our community and do this major effort to clean up the major streets, roads, and parks before a lot of visitors come to Watertown, before Lake Area Tech's graduation, Watertown High School, and Great Plains High Schools. And we want to be proud of our city. And just to kind of let you know a little bit about Clean and Green, we have two basic goals: decrease litter and increase recycling. That's the goals of our specific committee. Just to let you know a little bit about some accomplishments we've done before. Last year, we appeared before you and we talked about the campaign, Let's Make Watertown a Little Bit Better. So that was a successful campaign last year, and we thank all those businesses that helped us out, and the businesses, groups. We had a lot of partners. We had recycling at Cook Complex this past summer. Lots and lots of tan bins out there, and we collected a lot of plastic and cans. We had a recycling in place at National Night Out and had a display for that event. We had recycling at the farm show and at the home show at the expo building. We are working with the Watertown High School in applying for a grant from Keeping America Beautiful for free recycle bins, so we'll find out soon if we get that. We are also planning for having recycling at Foundation Field and the stadium in 2014, in addition to the Cook Complex like we did last year. So just to kind of show you some of the things we did, McKinley was a great representative of schools that picked up garbage and separated out some recycling. And then there's 10 full tan bins full of plastic bottles that were collected after a big tournament last weekend. So that effort will be expanded.
Now, if you look at those containers, none of those a year ago, none of those containers would have went to recycling. They all went in the garbage. Every single one of them. There was zero efforts out there. And we are looking for groups and organizations that want to help pick an area. If you get your map, you can pick the map.
Yep.
We'll show you that. Where we have designated specific spots around the community that really need the litter pickup. We have groups. We're going to match the size of the groups with the size of the zones to be picked up. The link, we'll have it on the website, on the city's website. You can sign up on the website. If you have a group of 10, we'll match you up with the size of a lot or a street that'll fit your group, so you're not working a 3-mile stretch with 3 people. Pick up the bags and the safety vests. We've hooked up with the Chamber of Commerce downtown, where they're going to have the center place to pick up all the bags, the vests, and whatnot. Okay? And there's the map. Those are the specific areas that we've designated that really need to be cleaned. So through the website is where you can go and sign up your group to choose an area, pick an area, and we will align that with with the size of your group. I know the Hockey Association, I'm sure, is eager to get up there and pick up a big long stretch of that highway.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Some of the things we've done and the people that have been helped us in our organization, of course, the City of Watertown Sanitation Street Department. The street, we're going to drop off all the garbage, and the bags will be dropped off at the street department, sanitation. Mike Berger will get the trash and recycling to the right place after it's all collected. The Park and Recreation gave us suggestions on which parks and priority areas to be cleaned up. The police department has already signed up for a section and will assist the extra patrol for safety while the groups are picking up the litter. And the mayor's office, Shelley, has been a great help in getting the website up and running. First District, they helped create the map, and Thrivent Financial has actually provided some funding for, I believe it was the vests and some other things that we're going to need. And of course, the radio stations in town, as well as the public opinion, will help us get the word out about groups and needing help and whatnot. Okay? I think that's all I've got. Do I have one more?
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone can get involved. It says pick up a litter around your own neighborhoods. I know most people would probably do it around your own house, but up and down the block as well. Business owners can be asked to pick up and beautify their own property, even after your dog as well. Littering is against the law, city ordinance there, as you can see. And let's all help keep Watertown beautiful.
And if you guys are on Facebook, you can like us, then you can find out about stuff that's going on, Watertown Clean and Green, on our Facebook page. Thank you very much.
We've got 2 weekends, April 26th that weekend, and then and then May 3rd, that whole weekend, 2 weekends in there. So if you know of anybody that wants to help get involved, we'd like to see everyone's help to get the town cleaned up.
Tim, I would like to volunteer when you have the bypass, when you're working on that. I would love to get involved and help clean that up, my wife and I, and hopefully some of the council, we can just get our own group together and our spouses, and we can be right out there with you.
It can be a lot of fun, and the more people you have, it becomes more fun. The fewer people you have, the more work it becomes for you.
Yeah, and if you come on Saturdays to the police department between 8 and 10, you can have coffee before you go out and do your zone. So
There you go.
check
So-
that out.
So there's the incentive, is a free
Yeah.
coffee.
Free coffee, donuts.
Any questions, council? Okay.
Thank you, guys.
forward to seeing you
out there. Thank you very much.
This is something very, very important for Watertown, and I really admire the efforts that you guys are putting out on that. So thank you very much.
Very good, thank you.
Next on the information here is the Hockey Association discussion on a second sheet of ice. And Vince, are you here?
I am.
All right. It's all yours.
Okay, thank you. I just do want to clarify, it's the Hockey Association, the Lions Club, and the Figure Skating Association. We have numbers of people from all three organizations here today. Thank you very much for this opportunity. We come here today about 30 years after David J. Law, my dad, Will Morlock came before Alan Eisenheimer as a city council member and got the building built the first time. And we actually, in the house, Mom has a picture of the council meeting when that occurred. So that happened in about 1987, that meeting. We do have the exact date, but the building was built in 1987. In January of 2012, we were able to receive a study that was produced by an architectural group called 292. That's the name of the architectural agreement or group. The study was paid for by the city. Mayor Williams organized that, used city funds to pay for that, and asked that a representative group go through a request for proposal process. Will Morlock was one member. Who else escapes me at the time, but we had a request for proposal interview process here, and the 292 group was selected. City staff at the time, Dale Alexander was the superintendent, was the ramrod of the issue. The idea was to study for what we might have for the future viability of the process, examine what we had out there. We wanted an expert to tell us whether what we had was an arena worth saving and worth moving forward for, to give us an idea of operational costs, and then come up with concept plans for a future edition, the second sheet. The study concluded that the staged method was the best process. And what we had for information at the time did not include the Sunchase purchase that you as the city has purchased since. And so you have now received a copy of the 292 report. You'll notice that if you go through the detail in the report, there's comments about the restrictions to the south. Because of the council's action, that is no longer in place. But the concept that was ultimately cost out was the recommendation of 292 based upon a lot of input from Mr. Alexander. And to be frank, Mr. Alexander pushed the idea of the precast wall, much like the Brookings structure, if you've seen the Larson Arena. That was an underlying problem, we think, in the study that was done, and that it put an unrealistic construction technique in place beyond what actually would be something that we would want. The estimates that were produced came from a Minneapolis-St. Paul cost estimator. We have taken those cost estimates and run them by an informal basis people that are associated with local construction of a similar magnitude in town, and those construction costs for that type of construction are high, plus that construction type is higher than what we really think is necessary. So what we think is actually probably the most likely route ultimately that we would go would be a structural steel building as opposed to precast. Now, that brings us back to what we have for the Mace Arena at the time, or at this time. We have issues with the existing rink. The architect didn't cite chapter and verse, but he identified the fact that we have fire code issues. If you've been in the locker room area, that's a wood construction assembly area with exits that I'm advised by him don't rise up to code, number one. Number two, the building code issues. We have ingress and egress type issues. There's a safety issue. If you've been out there, when you walk past the bathrooms and you walk towards the locker room area, you are walking through the area that the Zamboni or the Olympia has to pass, the resurfacer. At the ice show this weekend, with 130 kids participating, the Lions Club had to form human chains to make sure that no kids snuck through as we're working the resurfacer in and out of the rink for the flood. We have no shower facility out there. And in the off season, probably best to say we have humidity issues. And there's problems that crop up. The city staff does a wonderful job of remediating once the problem crops up. But every year they have to go through that process. And it lingers. Some people that have certain allergies tell me that it lingers throughout the year. It doesn't bother me, doesn't bother my children, but other people have complained. Our restrooms have code issues. First, for the number of people that can fit in the arena, it's woefully undersized. And we also have ADA issues just in those restrooms themselves. So what we think we need to convey to you is a 3-level examination of what we have and where we might go in the future. We think that the rink deficits are something that need to be taken care of, and they need to be taken care of very quickly because of the safety issues. 292 study was intended to identify, in part, where we had deficits and what needed to be addressed. But if we do take steps to remediate those, we want to make sure that we don't build ourselves into a corner. That was the second main tenet of the 292 study. The purpose was to make sure that before we go throwing something up, let's take into consideration a potential second sheet. And that's the ultimate recommendation of the layout, was intended to make sure that we took those kinds of things into account. So those kinds of priorities, we think, are something that needs to be addressed. We've asked, and to this point, it hasn't advanced, and we think so strongly of it that the Watertown Hockey Association and the Lions Club have already committed $100,000 towards this project. Now, that $100,000, we had been working towards the second sheet. We'd been accumulating hope for the future. But we need to do this. This needs to be done, and that's why the Hockey Association and the Lions Club have committed those funds. Now, I don't mean to sell the Figure Skating Club short. They just aren't in a position at this point to contribute, and it shouldn't be looked at as a negative at all. They're here in support, and they're going to benefit from whatever we do just as much as the other organizations. We also, now moving into the second tier, have issues concerning what we call the useful life issues. If you read the 292 report, it details that what we've got for a refrigeration system is supermarket grade, for lack of a better term. The supermarket just about closed down this past weekend. The city staff did a great job of keeping things running with Band-Aids and baling wire. We were down to 2 compressors that if one of them went, the rink would go down. And they're old. If you go through the report, you can see some of the detail. I won't go into that in this discussion, but it's a problem. The dasher board system. Dasher boards are hockey boards, the white bottom part. The glass part is in good shape. Glass, the plexiglass or acrylic glass breaks and you replace. That's a common practice in rinks. It's not uncommon. But the boards, the dasher boards, at this point have exceeded their useful life, number one. Number two, they don't make them anymore. The company that made them filed bankruptcy. And those boards are a single piece construction. And so if one of those breaks, you need to replace the whole piece of the board. In modern systems, if there's a hole punched in, it's a modular system where you can replace pieces in and out instead of the entire section of board. Now, at the time, it was thought to be state-of-the-art, but the state-of-the-art has moved back into the older types of construction. And then finally, our resurfacer operations. If you've been out there, that in the northeast corner, the wood room, the garage, is where the resurfacer is. There's safety issues that have been identified by the 292 group there as well, not to mention that it's a room that is not fire protected and has quite a bit of flammable materials in it. So what we think the second level, and I don't mean to say phase, but second level of improvements that we need are to address the potential problems with those systems, that use the 292 study to make sure that what we do is address those without, again, building ourselves into the box, and take advantage of efficiencies with both the first level and the second level as we construct to think ahead to a second sheet, so that we don't waste resources as we move in that direction. Those are the first two levels. The third level is the second sheet. It's been identified as a community need. We've been working on second sheet discussions for over 10 years, and the 292 study was the first step that went that far to the point of actually putting a drawing, examining it from the context of an architect and what might be needed in the future. And so what we hope to accomplish with the second sheet, should we get there, is that we address the issue of increased user load. Through the efforts of Becky Morlock with the Lions Club Ice Show, with Terry Kelly and Terry Jorgensen in Park and Rec, and the Figure Skating Club and the Hockey Association, our numbers have ballooned. When the 292 study started, when we had our first meetings, we did not have the numbers to justify a second sheet. He said the number was 400, and we were not at 400. We're now well past 400. You might see some Park and Rec numbers that talk of the different levels. There is some double counting that occurs, but even if you go through and say count heads as opposed to, say, a hockey player that's also in the ice show, instead of counting them twice, count them once, we're well past the number. Last year, the number that we roughly arrived at by trying to take out the double counts for just the users in the ice show, the Hockey Association, the figure skating, were 435. That did not include other users. Those other users get included in the 400. The public skate users, the rental users, the adult hockey, those are all part of a user count according to 292, but just using the youth numbers, that's where we get to. We think that we could have more available prime time for the youth, of course. If we have two sheets, we've got more ice time available for the youth at times that work for the families. We'd have more flexibility for regular season scheduling, which would create more opportunities for other types of events, tournaments, competitions, shows. Right now, the Figure Skating Club is limited to one show. And the Lions Club Ice Show accommodates the season by having its show when it does. Now, there's some debate whether it should change back, but the Lions Club accommodated the user load years ago because of those problems. Other interested users would have the availability. Now, we've had interest from other youth groups, church youth groups, in using the ice, but some of the prime time isn't available. There actually was explored this year curling and broomball. There's no place to put them. And so those users don't figure into the ring. Now, what would we gain for a community? Of course, we'd gain the use, but we'd gain the tournament, the ability to host tournaments. Right now, by rule, Watertown is not eligible to host the state varsity boys hockey tournament. We hosted the girls varsity state tournament, and there were a couple of games where it was getting close to full. It didn't get full, but it was getting close. But the boys hockey tournament, there are times when even the Brookings rink is exceeded in numbers. Watertown played in a past semifinal. It was 2,500 people that were there. We would be able to host other youth tournaments and then potentially bring a junior hockey team to town. We can't bring a junior hockey team to town right now. With the second sheet, if we planned appropriately, we could potentially have a second sheet in place. So what we would look for in that second sheet is the consideration of a second sheet, but also keep in mind these other possible entry or other expansions. What might work? What might work for the benefit of other users other than ICE users? We were willing to think outside the box. What we're going to come to the council at some point, and I need to discuss with the mayor on the exact timing, we're not here today, but what we want to do is have you authorize and fund an RFP process for that first level, those priority projects. Those need to be done. And we have those problems out there, and they're not going to go away. 2, same with the necessary updates. If we're going to consider that level 1, it would be best to at least consider and study and design that level 2, because the level 2 is going to be needed to be done anyway. We hope that you can figure out a way to revisit that level 1 funding. City staff has recommended it in the past, and it hasn't made it. We want to be able to address those problems as soon as we possibly can. If you're going to do that, we'd hope that as we go through the process, as the council is working on community benefit plans, that you consider the necessary updates that are that level 2, and then the level 3, the second sheet, and improvements as well. Using what we have from 292 and using what we think the informal references that we used for costs would show, we think that those are the approximations of where those figures might run. The priority project, that level 1, the necessary updates. Keep in mind that some of that money is going to be needed to be spent here soon anyway, with the compressor plant the way it is. Do we want to pour money into a compressor plant that is not of a quality or has the power that we need at this point? And then 3, the improvements. You've seen the 292 report and that huge figure. Please don't look at that and think that at some point is going to be our ask, because it's not. That was, as I explained, the process driven by Mr. Alexander. And I don't mean to, I mean to throw him under the bus, but you got to remember that it was a city study paid for by the city, and he was the city representative in charge of the discussions. The rest of us had input. And we ended up with a precast concrete wall structure. Beautiful structure, but not something that we think, number 1, is what we need, nor number 2, is it the best for what the future might hold. Precast locks you in. Structural steel allows for expansion. Aberdeen just did it on their structural steel building. That flexibility we think is important. That was 15 minutes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I want to tell you, one of the comments you had made, Vince, and I'm going to just throw this at you. You mentioned we need to look for the future, and I truly think for our ICE situation, the future is now. We need to get going on this. And I think that this council is going to be looking at 3-4 different projects that we can put on our quality of life bond. We are working on, right now, as you know, the multi-purpose bond. That's kind of a separate little thing. But there's going to be 3-4 other projects that we want to get moving on in Watertown and I truly think ice has waited long enough. So I'm hoping they'll go that. We don't have we don't have a lot of time for questions tonight. If you wanted to ask a couple questions, I'll give you like 5 minutes. I've got 2 other items to get through on the work session. Any questions you guys want to ask Vince?
I think it's just very important after visiting with Will and a few other people in the community that we do strongly and very quickly look at the repairing what we have. I mean, I think that is definitely the first step we need to make. I didn't realize it was quite so outdated and quite so far behind of what it was, but we got to fix what we got, and so when we do put something else on there, that we got a number one facility all around. So
Thank you, and that's important. That, I mean, and it's important. You look through the 292 report. The city staff has done a marvelous job with the facility. The architect expected the building structure to be in much worse shape than it was. The useful life of the Mace building is close to the end on the calendar, but in reality, city staff has extended the useful life of that facility and that building. The building's in great shape. It's the components that are underneath it that are causing us the problem. That's what we really need action on.
Vince, nice presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
I think it might be beneficial for the council, I would think, that if we had an opportunity to come out and get a tour and firsthand kind of see some of these things, if we could set something up like that where we could take a couple of groups and just go through there and visually see what's going on,
Okay.
I think that would be beneficial for us.
We'll work on setting that up with Mr. Jorgensen and his staff and coordinate through the mayor to let you all know. I think that'd be great.
Maybe just have a work session out there. Anyhow.
Bring pucks.
If
All
I could
right.
have,
Is
if
there
I
any
could
other
have just make
questions?
one comment.
Just
I'd like to
quickly.
make a comment real quick. Just take a minute. Friday when I was out there working on getting ready for the ice show, I had a gentleman and his daughter came into the rink, and they were looking to see what we had for ice skating facilities and ice skating programs. They're moving here from Minnesota. If you're recruiting people out of Minnesota, Wisconsin, anywhere east, I'll guarantee you a skating facility is a priority.
I have just one question, Vince. I don't know if you really addressed this, but the various groups don't get enough ice time. But one of the things I've noticed since I've been back to town is just the general community. If I want to go out and skate, there's so many people that aren't necessarily in the ice show or aren't playing hockey, but they'd like to throw the skates on once in a while. And there are very limited opportunities. Would you address that, if you would, please?
There are, and it's part of the magic that the Park and Rec staff has to do is a balance to try to figure out utilization. They will adjust the numbers based upon utilization, and one of the problems that we run into is because of the need for the ice for the other activities for certain prime time, we do cut open skate short, number one. Number two, we have, because it's cut short, frankly, a lot of times it's not amenable to beginners. The hockey kids are out there, and the figure skating girls are out there, and they go really fast, and that's pretty intimidating to new users. And so because we don't have much ice available, those people end up on the sidelines quite often. We have purchased divider boards, and you'll see them on the tour. The Hockey Association, in conjunction with the city, has put into place divider boards that divide the ice in half, and it can be a third, move it up and down, and so that we will conduct 2 activities at the same time on the ice. The figure skaters, last year, we had a section where there was figure skaters on one end, hockey skaters on the other. Now we'll have the board set up, and there will be hockey kids. Adam Sullivan, our former varsity coach, now runs the youth program, and he'll have little kids down on one end, the boards, and then figure skating on the other. So the city's working with all the users to try to create opportunities, and those boards are one way that they've done it.
Vince, I got one quick question, because I think it's been a question that's kind of dependent on opinion, but has there been a decision made that the location for a second sheet of ice would be adjacent to and adjoining to the current structure?
Well, the decision ultimately is the council, so,
For recommendation to the council?
yes. Yeah, and that was the gist of the 292 study. There have been discussions even after the 292 study that, well, let's consider something else. Let's consider, you and I talked about potential combinations with other facilities. But, you know, the rink, the city has purchased the Sun Chase apartment complex. The asset is there. And it's been a West Watertown activity for years, and so the recommendation is been pretty firm that's the best place for it.
Thanks, Vince.
So
Okay,
Vince.
thank you.
So Vince,
The other one for the liquor license on item number 3.
Ray?
Anything to say on the liquor license?
That's Stanton's job now.
Vince, those facilities would be able to be shared, like locker rooms and bathrooms
Yes.
between the two, so it's really
Yes,
it's a cost saving if it happens to the other one biz built there.
thanks. Yes, yep. Thank you all for coming.
Great job. That was a great job.
Lot of them out there.
Okay, let's move on. Let's have, in the council here, discussion on resolution establishing rules for special alcoholic beverage licenses. We'll spend a few minutes on this. Or should we move with the museum first? Which one do you guys want to, the museum? Yeah, let's go ahead and move with the museum first. Is Christy, Nancy, Joy, and John around? Hayden? There you are. Come on up. I told him that.
No, not today. Sorry.
Mail. He had an appointment he had.
Well, thanks for being here, ladies, and you go ahead and just get started if you want. I asked them, we've had a discussion with them about some museum ideas, and they're going to bring those forward. They had a chance to talk to their board, and it sounds exciting to me, so I'm ready to listen.
Good. Okay. My name is Christy, and I'm from the Cottington County Heritage Museum, and I'm here today with Nancy and Joy, who are members of the Board of Directors. The museum currently is located in the Carnegie Library, and that building is owned by the City of Watertown. And the museum, actually the Historical Society rents that building from the city, and we also receive a generous donation from the city. And we're very appreciative of both of those services that you offer. We really, we're grateful. One thing that we had been talking about, first I think it went around at coffee, that the museum should move to the zoo. And so our board discussed it, and we talked with Dan Miller, and after some good discussion, we think that it might be a good move for our organization and for the zoo. It would create more of a destination for the zoo, and it would be an opportunity for the museum to really expand, increase our visitation, and it'd be a good partnership with the zoo. A new building would also be accessible. Currently, Our building is not accessible, and we find a lot of times that people don't complain that we're not accessible, they just don't come, and then we hear later that they didn't feel that they were able to get into the building. In a new building, we would be able to provide a center where people could attend presentations, see our artifacts, and more easily access archives for research. We do a lot of research, and sometimes the stairs are a problem there as well. A new building would also provide much needed space for displays, classroom space, and so today we're asking that you consider building a new museum at the zoo as a part of the quality of life bond issue. This would bring a new dimension to the bond issue because a museum is something that's year-round and it's for people of all ages. And I know some of the things that you're working on are for younger people and are sports-oriented, and a museum would be something for everybody. And let's see. It'd also be a good opportunity for intergenerational participation. One thing that we talked about was when there's a car full of a family and there are grandparents and children, the kids always win. Even if grandma wanted to take them to the museum, they always end up at the zoo. And so that's what we're here to talk about today.
I'll just add to that a little bit. We had a meeting out at the zoo, and at Dan Miller's invitation, and we know there'd be a lot more discussion and exploration that would have to go on as to how the two entities would work, because we're two separate entities. But we really think that there is a good potential there to create a destination. Like she said, you could get one carload and we could take care of everybody. And we're thinking we would have more people seeing what we have, because some of the younger people that would otherwise just go to the zoo would then participate in what we would have to offer. And we really envision taking what we already have and making it more of a hands-on place for kids to go and learn, and it would add another dimension to what they're already learning when they go to the zoo. So we really view it as the potential to be a real win-win and make it a real destination. We know that when tourists come to town, they aren't going to make multiple stops any more than they need to. And we feel like we've already got it. The zoo is a great draw. What do they say, 60,000, per year. Obviously, they've got a big draw. Our numbers aren't anywhere near that, but we really view changing our location, making it handicapped accessible, making it more approachable for all generations to share together with what is already at the zoo. It would just really fit nicely. So our board has met, and we feel like this is really something we'd like to explore, and just think it would add another dimension to the quality of life, which is what you're talking about, and this would be another angle to that.
It was very interesting. I'm going to just throw this at you. Prior to myself and John going to Minneapolis, you had just talked to me about this. And when we were in the cities, I was telling John about it. And all of a sudden, he starts clicking with all these ideas of what we can do and what we can't do. It was just amazing. And I think you'll find that if you guys are serious about really doing this, and we can knock down that old house that Terry's been shacking up in once in a while out there for naps. and building a new museum out there, I think it would be incredible for Watertown. So I think the next step really is to get more input from the council, get some kind of a group together that we can see what's happening here.
Just for your information too, the other day I was up at the museum right after a wet, stormy type thing, and I'm telling you, those steps, and they were okay. I don't mean that anybody hadn't done their job and cleaned them off, but there was potential for that to be very, very dangerous if you'd been carrying anything and snow and ice, and I think the numbers are reflected in the fact it's just too dangerous for older people then, let's say.
Well, and unfortunately, sometimes the ones that shouldn't be on the stairs are the ones who aren't afraid, and I got chewed out last week for trying to assist someone who I thought should follow me down the stairs as a safety precaution, so.
We just threw a few numbers at maybe square footage and possible cost, and it's very conceptual at this point, but we thought with 7,500 square feet that would afford us some classrooms or seminar rooms to really expand programming. And at 7,500 square feet, we thought we'd land at about $1.3 million. And if the project were like $1.5 million, that would give us, you know, some of the interior fixtures to really expand and do some interactive, you know, type history things that we can't do now. And of course, Watertown wants to attract more people to Watertown, and I think there are many, many people that are interested in what we have to offer. They just can't get in the building. And I just think it would be a very good tourist attraction for Watertown, too.
Anybody got any questions for these ladies? I truly think it's a great idea, and we need to really put our hands on this and work with them and see if we can get something to work. Mike, Don, Beth, Russ?
Would that building be built whereby you'd have to go through the zoo and you'd have to have a membership to the zoo to get to your building? Or are you gonna put that outside of the zoo?
Those are some things that are still under discussion. We've talked with Dan Miller about doing things both ways. We wouldn't want to limit our visitation because of a financial issue, but at the same time, we could combine staff and partner on several different things that would be beneficial to both organizations. So all of those details have not, we really haven't talked about them too much yet.
So you're thinking we could go into your building from an outside entrance, and we wouldn't have to buy that ticket?
Right.
That would be
Right.
good.
Because we
I'm
want people
sure-
to be able to come just to the museum.
Good.
Or possibly you'd have a combined ticket that
Sure.
a family would buy to
Have a choice.
have a choice, or both, zoo
Right.
and museum.
I think the aspect of being the educational side of it would be tremendous for both the zoo and, I mean, they could tie a lot of educational things together with the zoo and the museum together. I think it'd be tremendous, so.
Right.
And area schools. Christy goes out to schools now to do presentations, because we obviously don't have the facilities to be able to do that, where buses from, you know, other neighboring cities and towns could also come to these presentations in this facility, so.
If you ever want a tour of the museum, we'd give one to you. But, you know, seriously, if you haven't been to the museum and you come in and look around, if you're my age or older, you'd remember being there when it was the library. And, you know, to go down the stairs, if you see the stairs that we use to go down, and that's what people come if they want to come and do archive research or anything, that's what they do. It works fine. We are not complaining, and we very much appreciate what you've done up to this point. But if we want to make this available to more people and we want to make it of interest to kids, we just think a new venue is really kind of a necessity for us. So it's where we are right now has worked well, and we do appreciate it. But if you come in and look around, you'll see why long-term, even just the electrical and the computer, and I mean just a number of just modern conveniences we need, it needs some work if we're going to stay there. And given the age of it and all of that, it really seems from a long-term standpoint that's probably not what you want to be doing. But anyway, we'd invite anybody who's interested to come take a look. It's free. Yeah.
What kind of time frame are you folks thinking? How soon would you like to see, if this project did go through, how soon would you like to see it completed?
You know, I don't know how to respond to that.
We haven't really talked about a time frame. We're pretty flexible.
You know, our initial meeting to go out to the zoo and meet with Dan occurred last month. I mean, so this is relatively new. Our board as a group met since then and said, if there is potential, because we had understood there was potential because of the quality of life bond, that we are all in favor of exploring what that might look like. And then we'd have to sort out how all of that would work. I mean, I guess we don't know for sure, but I guess from our standpoint, the more rapidly this can move along, the better for us, because the limitations we have right now aren't going anywhere.
What is your current annual visitation?
In 2013, we nearly doubled our visitation from 1,300 to 2,500.
What do you attribute that to? Any idea why that is?
We've done a lot of outreach. We've gone out and visited people. We've done a little bit more advertising. We've also changed up our exhibits and offered new programs like the Victorian Tea Birthday Party and a scavenger hunt. So we've really just turned the dial up on trying to get the word out and to provide the services that fulfill our mission.
Is there a way to analyze what the impact of a move would have on the operations, both from an expense standpoint as well as from a attendee standpoint? To know that if we're gonna look to make a possible change, what's the impact of having made that change? Is there any way to analyze that you're aware of?
Do you want to take a stab at that? 'Cause
I
we just
wouldn't
talked
know
about
how
it
to
generally.
address attendance. I just know it would be considerably better, of course, than we have now, but it would offer more to the people. Cost standpoint, expenses, I suppose we could work on that. I mean, that's a relatively much easier thing to work out, but as far as anticipated attendance, that's a real hard thing to gauge, but I think it would be dramatic, I really do.
And Joy, you believe that because it'd be near the zoo, is that's the thing, so.
Yeah.
But what is a ticket? I don't know the answer, what the ticket cost is to get in there right now.
The zoo is, was it $8?
Not the zoo, the museum.
It's free.
It's free,
I
okay.
wasn't kidding.
Now, is there an intention, that you said there would be a fee to visit this new facility?
Probably,
Okay.
I think
in conjunction with the zoo.
you have the opportunity to do some things, like Steve said, we conjured up some ideas, sitting behind a booth in Minneapolis for 4 days. We come up with some pretty wacky ideas, but I think you have an opportunity to make this a destination. And when we have a little more time, maybe we can share some of them ideas with you. And some of them are quite out there, but they'll be interesting. And those are all from John. Not from me, okay? I'm innocent. Thank you, gals, so much for being here
I got one
tonight.
question, but Ken, Steve, conceptually, I think it has a lot of merit. If somebody could come up with what would we repurpose the downtown building for? That's one of my, we talk about not losing things downtown, and I understand between space and accessibility and everything else, but that Carnegie building is, maybe one of the ones downtown we don't want to lose and let it turn into shambles either. So I think that's part of the discussion, is what we could repurpose
Not
or how
to
we
say
could do
how
it.
old Joy and I are, but it was at one time a youth center. Maybe we could turn back into that.
It was. I was there as a small child reading, and then I was at the youth center later.
I remember it as a library, so.
It's a great building, and I echo your thoughts, Bill. And it's a nostalgic thing for all of us lifetime, Watertonians, but I'm sure there's another use for it, and yet it just doesn't facilitate what our mission is here very well, or serve the people there.
Well, I understand that, but I think part of the whole getting the hands around the process would be, if the right idea comes up or the right process for that I think helps just kind of make the wheels
the
turn a
switch.
little better.
I agree.
So,
Yep.
keep that in mind. If somebody comes up with a good idea from that standpoint, I think that would be a lot of help in the process.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We got to move on. Thank you.
Thanks.
I do think we need to get together on that and kind of do a little brainstorming and see where it can come up and present it to the council. Let's go on. I think we got 5 minutes here. I don't know if that's enough time. If it's not, we'll have to push this on to the next one. Discussion on the resolution establishing rules for special alcoholic beverage licenses. This resolution 14XX, as you know, it's been in front of us a couple of times. We've never had any closure on this. We really do need to get some closure. There's things coming up that are dependent upon this. We do need to take a look at this particular thing, and number 4 on there, where no person or entity can be issued more than X amount of special alcoholic beverage license. We need to come up with a number on there for how many times they can use these licenses, whether it's 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times a year. we need something from you guys on that. Any thoughts?
Steve, do we have like a local, now this might be a stupid comment or question, but like a local beverage license association where, is there anything like that? Or have we gotten input back from the people that actually would be requesting these licenses and see what
never.
their input is?
Yeah, I have never heard anybody comment about this to me, Mike, or I don't know if you have, Stanton.
No, just so few have been issued by the city. The one I'm sure that comes to mind is the one that's issued annually to the chamber for cooking on Compesca or wing fling. Since that activity began, the statute has changed a little to the way it reads today. And the mayor mentioned upcoming events. The Lake Area Zoo Society is wanting to have an event in June at the Bramble Park Zoo. They're going to rezone the property and have an event that they'd like to have beer and wine available, but talk louder? Oh. One of the events that the mayor referred to, the Lake Area Zoo Society wants to apply for a special event malt beverage license because they want to have an event in June. Without rules being in place, state statute says we can't issue this special temporary beverage license. So we need to establish rules, and the statute says you have to establish the fee and the number of licenses that can be issued to any entity or individual in any one calendar year. So
Okay, so do we know today, if we look back over the last several years, what's the most we've issued to any one entity?
one.
One?
Per
So
year.
if we set it at 2 arbitrarily as a number and work with it and see how it works, and if we find out later on there's a greater use or demand for this, we could always have the option of changing.
I would agree.
We've never had a request for more than one to date.
No, just the chamber,
Just the
and
chamber.
there was one event at the County Fair Banquet Hall.
Okay. So I really think 2 is a fair number. We need to move down to number 6. The fee for these licenses shall be paid at the time of the app and are as follows. Special malt beverage retailer's license, there's suggestions out there for that number. On-sale wine retailer's license, special on-sale license, and special off-sale. I've had suggestions brought forward to me that for A should be $500, B $100, C $1,000, and D back to $100. And I just need some input from you folks. If you,
Mayor, is there a basis for those numbers that, I
Nope.
mean, I don't,
I was just given these numbers. In fact, I think I'm gonna shut this down now, and we're gonna have to revisit this next week. So, I'm gonna close the meeting now. We'll put this on the next agenda, okay, for the work session. Then we'll have some more time to really study it. You guys take a peek at this also on your own if you would, right? So I will adjourn this meeting, and in 3 minutes, we will move to the council meeting. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here at the Monday, April 7th, 2014 City Council regular meeting. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order. And Father Michael Wensing, if you will lead us in prayer.
Psalm 106 proclaims, "Give thanks to the Lord, for the Lord is good, for his kindness endures forever. Who can tell the mighty deeds of the Lord, or proclaim all his praises?" Let us pray. God of life and love, we pray for our city of Watertown. Grant us peace in our community, honesty in our trading, hospitality and warmth in our welcoming, integrity in our planning and civic life, that the common good may prevail and your kingdom of righteousness and justice be affirmed. We ask this in your name, Lord God, who are the way, the truth, and the life. Amen.
Thank you, Father Mike. And then Shelley, if you'll do roll call for us.
Albertson.
Here.
Bueller.
Here.
Danforth.
Here.
Manti. Meisenheimer.
Here.
Riefenberger.
Here.
Roby.
Here.
Solom.
Here.
Tupper.
Here.
Wilkins. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. Okay, approval of consent agenda. I would entertain a motion and second. Motion by John, second by Beth. Any concerns, anything you want to change on this? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 2, approval of agenda. Is there anything needs to be changed on this? I will look for a motion and a second.
Mayor, I'd like to propose a change, and I don't know the number, I actually don't have it pulled up on my laptop here, but the item 6, agenda item 6, which is the issue dealing with the Hy-Vee request. I'd like to recommend and will make a motion that get removed from the agenda tonight. The reason for that is I feel it's inappropriate for this body to address that in any way tonight and make a decision on that before the Board of Adjustments has had the opportunity to deal with that. I think it would be an undue influence either way we went with a decision. I think it's most appropriate in that scenario or in this case for that to be done without our influence at this point and to be removed from the agenda to come back to us should it be recommended to do so from the Board of Adjustments. So I'll make a motion,
Second?
if there are no other items, that be removed.
I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Mike and a second by Beth. All those in favor? Or is there any discussion on it? You guys have any questions quick on that?
I would just mention that I've had several people come to me with a discussion on the alcoholic beverages at the grocery store.
Okay.
As have I, which is why I support Mike's motion to bring this back down to the Board of Adjustments to address some of the things that need to be addressed prior for it to come to the council.
Very good. Okay, now I'll look for council action. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll move on to number 3. Application for a new retail off-sale malt beverage license and a new retail on-off sale wine license to Neil Mack, doing business as Good to Go Catering, 18 North Broadway Street, conditional on April 9th Board of Adjustment approval. This is a public hearing. I will open the public hearing at this time. If there's anyone that wants to speak in favor of or against this, this is your time.
Is it have already?
Hearing none, I will close that public
No, it's-
hearing, and I will look for a motion and a second. Motion by John, second by Bruce. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 4, application for a location and ownership transfer of a retail on-off sale malt beverage license from Convenience Corner, Inc., doing business as Convenience Corner, 4 10th Street Northwest, to Rock McGilvery, 72 Paradise Drive, inactive. This is a public hearing. I will open that public hearing if there's anybody here that wants to speak in favor of or against this. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. I will look for a motion and a second. Motion by Al, second by Bruce. Any discussion?
I just got one quick question and probably more towards Stanton. How long can a license sit inactive?
2 years under state law.
Then you just lose it, right?
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 5, application for a new retail on-off sale malt beverage license and a new retail on-off sale wine license to Luftin Mati, doing business as Mamma Mia's at 1519 9th Avenue Southeast. I will open a public hearing on this. If there's anybody in the audience that wants to speak in favor of or against this, now is your chance. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and look for council action. I need a motion and a second. Motion by Randy, second by Bruce. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 6 is gone. Number 7, application for a transfer and ownership of a retail on-off sale malt beverage and retail on-off sale wine license from Downtown Enterprises, Inc., doing business as Sparky's, 19 North Broadway, to Sparky's, Inc., doing business as Sparky's at the same location. This is also open to the public. I'll open the public hearing now. If there's anyone that wants to speak in favor of or against this. Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and look for council action. I need a motion and a second. Motion by John. Second by Al. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll look.
Is there somebody here from Sparky's? Right here. Explain what you're thinking.
Yeah, just come on up front and sit down if you will.
Sorry about that. Now, what was your question?
Review what you're asking for.
Okay, I'm Stacy Stoltenberg, and my partner Steve Bales will be taking over the liquor license transfer from Steve Pickerel and Kevin Solheim. And basically going to leave everything the same. I worked in Watertown at Minnesota Rubber for 26 years, and as everybody knows, they are closing. So I gave 26 of my years of my life to this factory, and I've just wanted to do something different, and this is my opportunity. And I hope you will give me that opportunity.
Any other questions for Stacy? Hearing none, I will look for council action. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Shelley, can you do a roll call, please?
This is on a motion to approve. Albertson?
No.
Bueller?
No.
Danforth?
No.
Manti?
No.
Meisenheimer?
Yes.
Riefenberger? Roby?
No.
Solom?
Yes.
Tupper?
No.
Wilkins?
No.
We have 3 for, 7 against. Motion fails.
Okay. Moving on. Number 8, ordinance number 1402, deleting Title 10 Fire Prevention and Protection, adopting in its entirety and replacing it with a new Title 10 Fire Prevention and Protecting within and for the city of Watertown. Now this one here kind of flows right in with resolution 1413, number 9. And I think we want to do those two kind of in the same breath, do we not, Don?
That's absolutely correct,
Yeah,
yes.
so resolution 1413 establishes fee for the city licenses, permits, administration, and other miscellaneous items. So this is a second reading.
Thanks, Mayor. We were here on March 17th on first reading on ordinance 14-02 with Chapter 10, which is basically the Title 10 Fire Prevention and Protection. And if you look, basically we're talking about chapters 10.01, which is Fire Department, Chapter 10.02, which is the Fire Codes and Prevention, Protection, excuse me. 10.04 is the hazardous materials section of the ordinance. 10.98 is the cross-references, and 10.99 is the punishment. Now, basically what we did is in the definitions portions of the fire department of 10.01, it is basically we identified some definitions, cleaned up some language that are associated with this ordinance, and also gave delegations of authority from the chief, the assistant chief, to the battalion chief that states how we run our fire department business. And essentially, we also looked at user fees that are associated with that. Page 3 on this ordinance, at the very bottom, talks about user fees. And I'll just briefly touch on those as well. When we talk about the 5 provisions that we identified the owners of property within a city who receive the services, fire services. We also identified owners of properties in counties, townships, or cities which the city provides fire service pursuant to a fire protection contract. We also identified anyone who receives the service as a result of a fire within a city, counties, or townships that fire services are provided. Any person, city, township, county who receive the fire services in an area within the state of South Dakota is derived by the All Hazards team. And also number 5, it talks about the user fees charged for emergency response service that shall be set by city resolution. And that kind of gets into what Mayor Thorson said, the city resolutions. we identified some fees that are associated with the city resolution, and those are as follows: residential fires, commercial fires, the unpermitted controlled burn fires, and the automatic alarm activation. And briefly, I'll just kind of touch base on the residential fire. A residential fire basically could be a storage shed, a house, a deck, a garage, and essentially that would be a $500 charge for somebody that would have an attack line or a pumper that would be charged, that would be identified in that residential fire. Commercial fire, obviously that's industrial. That could be maybe someone in the county, that could be a farmer, a row crop, hayfield, or anything of that nature. And when we talk about the residential and commercial, we have a minimum charge of $500 on the residential. On the commercial side of it, we'd have a $500 minimum charge as well, but also associated with that would be the overtime cost, maybe even the fees associated with the amount of equipment that would be used, foam, any damaged equipment that we'd use on that as well. And then the other two are the unpermitted burns. Those would be the ones that, for example, if somebody calls up within a mile of city limits that wants to have a controlled burn, we then would have our fire marshal Chip here go out and actually view that to make sure that it's something that's not any hydrocarbon type issues like tires or anything that would be paint, solvents, anything that would impact the city residents of Watertown. And if we issue that permit, what would happen then is if there would be a fire that would get out of control, they'd be responsible for those fees as well, just like what a commercial fire would be. So there would be the standard rate fee for our department as far as our personnel that would go out there, overtime fees, and also the fees associated with the equipment or foam or whatever we'd be using. And the last one is the automatic activation. Essentially what that is if we would have more than 4 alarms in one calendar year at a business, and we'd be open to that as well. We're talking about somebody that wouldn't take care of their alarm system, that would be continuing, that we'd go out there. We've been to some fires, alarms probably 5-6 times over a period of 6 weeks. And those are the folks that probably need to get their alarms taken care of, and that's kind of why we went with a $100 fee that would be associated with that for something after a 5th time. So basically, in a nutshell, that's kind of some of the areas that we went with on this ordinance. It's just basically a lot of language that was cleaned up and some definitions that gave it some legal touches to it.
Okay, thanks, Don. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do both of these separate. The first one, ordinance number 1402, I will look for a motion and a second on this.
So moved.
Motion by Randy, second by Russ. Any discussion, any questions now for Don on that?
Is that on the fees? Or is that the second
No,
one?
that's the first. The second one will be the fees. Any questions on this first one? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number 9 there, the resolution 14-13. I will look for a motion and a...
Can I just add one thing? If we're going over the resolution, this is kind of an all-encompassing fee resolution that we've started and tried to keep up. One other change, the residential contractor's license was at 50. If approved, it will go to 60 to cover the costs of that license. And then the ambulance department, those fees didn't change. They just were never part of this resolution before, so they were also added at this time. And then the fire department part is the new part based on what Don just discussed from the ordinance that you guys just approved. So.
Okay, that was my question. I had a question for him on the fees that they were proposing for his part, but we've already approved that?
No.
No, we have not.
No,
They
you've approved.
will be a part of this one for sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So I will look for a motion and a second on number 14-13. Motion by Beth, second by Mike. Now, is there any discussion, any questions for Don or from Shelley?
I just got one question, Don, is when you talk about alarms, when you're going to keep track of those, and of course, that's probably half a dozen of the same people all the time, but all of a sudden now we get a big electrical storm and you guys are running all over town answering alarms, or you're not going to try to count those same people for things like that?
Not at
right?
all.
Okay.
June 21st of last year would be a
Yeah.
perfect example. That massive storm that we had, we answered 28 alarms that night.
And I'm sure some of them were multiple.
Yes,
Yeah.
2 or 3 times that night, correct.
Thank you.
And that, we would waive those appropriate to that as well, the mayor and myself and the chief.
Yeah.
Good question.
If I could push my button here fairly, but the only question I have is on that $100, Don. You know, when we do have an issue that people aren't taking care of, and I'm not talking about the ones that is outside of their control and it happens on occasion, but when we are sending out services to those locations to answer to these false alarms per se that they're not taking care of, we are potentially taking away services to people that may need that. $100 doesn't seem like a big motivator to me when you know you've got a problem and it should be fixed. I just wonder about that $100 deal. If it shouldn't be higher to motivate somebody to fix it when you know there's a problem, because we are taking that service away from somebody that may need it, and that's just food for thought. But I question whether that's enough money.
And I'll add to that too, Mike. I think that this is 4 times. They get 4 times, and then do we have that many that go more than 2 or 3 times? Do we have a lot
in one calendar year?
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it kind of seems to me like you would maybe 2 or 3. You know that
There's not a lot of them. There's a few though. I mean, we've targeted a couple places, and not right now. I'm not going to tell you who they were, but you know, ultimately, this gives us an opportunity to research it over the next 6 months. If it's something that we need to change to maybe identify that is not enough, Mike, I think maybe that's something that could be explored. We could take that back to our advisory committee and see what they think, and see if that's something that we want to change. But I think right now, Doug and I feel pretty strongly that this might work, and if it doesn't, we can make that change accordingly.
I assume this
a
is,
step-up process also.
Yes.
well, I assume this is 4th time's $100, 5th time's another 100, on and on?
After the 4th time, which number 5 would be $100.
And then so the 6th is another 100, or?
$100, correct.
Or do your
We don't
subject-
anticipate this being a problem.
If
This might
the
be an
100 didn't do them, then maybe that would be the thing, you start upping the ante, I guess, if that didn't fix the problem, so.
That could be a part of this process.
One thing about it with this in place, now you can go back and identify those people that are the same trouble people all the time.
Correct.
And approach them and say, this is what our new city ordinance is.
Absolutely.
No,
Like I said,
you
this
guys-
doesn't happen a lot, but
Yeah.
it's enough to where we understood that there might be something we should look at here
Yeah.
and try to fix it, resolve it.
You're gonna put that on the agenda for the next meeting that we have. You're not?
I'm asking for approval tonight, Russ.
No, we'll be looking for action tonight here.
Don, I've only had maybe 2 people respond to this at all when they've seen it's coming up for vote tonight. In both cases asked if we're already providing fire protection, why do we have to pay for it? Because we already pay our taxes, and so why do we have to pay $500 if we happen to have a fire?
Good question, Dan. I think that we look at the amount of costs that are accrued to a fire call anymore. In today's world, it's a little bit higher than what we did 5-10 years ago. We bring a truck to a normal house fire, for example. We could have thousands of dollars invested into that one call. And to answer your question about certain individuals with hardships, I think those are ones that we would have to identify as those that we wouldn't charge. So I can't answer to every question on those type of calls, but we do have the authority to waive that fee.
I think just your technology nowadays of putting out fires, I mean, I think Don really, or Doug really explained it pretty good last time, is, you know, just the savings that you have for the technology that you have nowadays, but it does also cost you a tremendous amount more money, so.
Do you have any idea, excuse me, I'm sorry, any idea what percentage of people who have that $500 covered under their insurance and who don't? Do you have any idea of how many that exist?
That would be something that would be personal information in your insurance policy. Beth?
I think most people check, they are probably covered in that, because I think the majority of the fire departments in the country do charge a charge, don't they?
I did check with 4 or 5 insurance agents in town, and they said most homeowners do have the $500 residential.
I think part of the problem with not being able to collect it before is because we never had it actually in an ordinance is the
Correct.
problem. So
There was no-
insurance companies, as long as it wasn't
There was no
in the
legal-
ordinance, there was nothing to force them into paying it. So.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's what we discussed before, and I think for those that aren't sure or, you know, that are now become aware of this, it's certainly something when they renew their policy they can check into, and it might even not be any additional expense, but, or very minimal, I would think. Because I know commercially, that's also part of the policy, and commercial, there's a certain amount allowed for those expenses. And like we said before, if we don't make this an ordinance, it's pretty much, okay, you send them a bill. You don't make the homeowner pay, but an insurance company basically says, well, there's nothing making me pay, we're not gonna write a check. So I think that this, you know, kind of solves that problem.
Well, I think about 6 months ago, we were looking at doing away with this because it was basically uncollectible. Because of that, we didn't really have it in an ordinance, so I think that's the reason for being here, so.
I've got one other question. If it's a rental, is the renter responsible if they start the fire, or is it the person that owns the rental property?
Homeowner will be getting the bill.
Okay, and then the same thing, if the development company owns property and they have a fire, is the development company, whoever owns or the building is responsible for
Whoever
the...
owns the land would be receiving the bill, correct. Good question.
Yeah, Craig, you're going to get nailed now. You know that, don't you? All right, put it on the list.
Anybody else? Good questions.
All right. Any other questions for these guys? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
I have a question for them, in either be in new business or just a question now. Do you want to do it now, or do you want to do it later?
No, go
It's
ahead.
just a general
We've got,
Okay, on my way here tonight, I'm okay?
Just
On my
not a
way
long
here
one, Mike.
tonight, there was an ambulance that had left. It was just a little after 5, and then a minute or two behind that was a fire engine that went down this street, and then they turned south on 81. And I happened to be caught by both of them. I was appalled at the lack of, or the complete disregard for the public in the traffic pulling over. I mean, it was at the corner of 81 and First Avenue, the ambulance to get through that intersection was amazing to me. Is that common? I mean, it was, you know, I hate to say it, but it was terrible for the ambulance to get through there.
We asked for the right-of-way, Mike, and I do appreciate you bringing that up. Unfortunately, sometimes either people don't see us, they have their radios on, they're not paying attention, and sometimes they just don't take that time to be aware or cognitive of what's around the surroundings. And occasionally, I'm not saying it happens a lot, but we see a small percentage of the times that does happen, yes.
I mean, I was shocked at how, and I'm gonna throw the word no one, but vast majority of the vehicles paid no attention to it. They kept going through the intersection like there was nothing coming, and the ambulance was right there. And then right behind it, here comes the fire truck, and the same thing was happening.
If we do
I just wanted to, I mean, you guys can only do so much, but it's a public awareness issue, and what I saw tonight was just pretty alarming.
I think what we do is if we do something that's really alarming or something very illegal, we will turn it over to the police department and have them investigate. And obviously, we can only see so many cars with so many license plates as you're going down the road and try to get that information. But our main goal is to get to the emergency, obviously, and we don't pay as much attention to those offenders.
Some cameras mounted on all the vehicles.
So, thank you for
Anyway,
that comment.
thank you, I appreciate you.
okay, thanks, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Number 10, first reading of ordinance 14-13, amending zoning district boundaries by zoning lot 4 of Endress East First Edition to I-1 Light Industrial District. Tom, I think you got the next, 4 or so?
That's correct. What we have is the first reading on these next 4. And I think you read it, so I'm okay with proceeding.
Then you can take number 11.
Again, I should just go back and tell you this is on the east end of town at 43rd Street and our 41st Street south. And we're looking at a proposed industrial. That's on number 10. Number 11 is the first reading of ordinance number 14-14, amending zoning district boundaries by zoning a portion of Foxland Estates addition to I-1 Light Industrial District. Again, this is right across the road from the last one that we were looking at, and again on the east end of town. The next one is on 13, or 12 is the first reading of ordinance number 14-15, amending zoning district boundaries by temporary rezoning Bramble Park Zoo from A1 Agricultural District to C2 Local Commercial District. Then the number 13 is the first reading of ordinance number 14-16, amending sections 21.8011 and 21.8016 of the revised ordinance of the City of Watertown. And this is actually to incorporate, we currently cite a Pacific building code, International Building Code, and we wanted to make it more generic to cite the current edition of the International Building Code, so it doesn't have to be changed every time we adopt a new code. So.
Okay, thank you, Tom. We're going to move on to number 14, consideration of funds to complete the Cook Complex renovation project in the amount of $50,000. If you remember, we had that discussion at the last council meeting to finish it up. Terry, is there anything you wanted to mention on the complex for us? And while he's getting ready, I will say, if you decide to move forward on this, you really have two options of where to get the money. You either use our contingency fund, which has $300,000 in it, which we have not used, or the second penny, and you'll need to make that decision if you decide to go forward with Terry's request.
Well, at the last work session, I showed a few slides and we talked about Cook Complex. Last year in 2013, we spent right at $250,000 out there. Part of the reason that I'm requesting more funds, we didn't address the bleacher issue, so we need 2 sets of 10-row bleachers. There's some landscaping that needs to be done that wasn't addressed in the initial project, and to me the main thing is to raise some fencing, where we have 42-inch fencing now, and we'd like to raise that to 8-foot fencing. So those 3 things together would total $50,000.
Okay, I would look for a motion and a second on this.
So moved.
Motion by.
But I
Dan.
made the motion, but I'm not sure where I would recommend to take the money, but I would make the motion to finish this project.
Come on, Dan. Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
You're killing me. Contingency. Yeah, take it out of the contingency, Dan. Just go ahead, make that motion. Is that what you suggest?
Contingency. Okay, from the contingency fund.
Okay, so you're making a
Killing it.
motion to approve and take the $50,000 from the contingency fund
Right.
in the amount of $50,000. And we have a motion by Dan and a second by Bill. Any further discussion?
I mean, if in their costs they get $40,000 worth of costs, not 50, are they doing the work that's been scoped out, or are they getting the $50,000?
No, they'll do the work up to $50,000 if it's not spent.
And not expanding the
Yep.
scope of what's been requested so far?
Exactly.
Okay.
The money will come back.
Terry, how long do you think it'll take you to get that completed?
The season usually starts, adult softball starts in the middle of May, and then obviously we wouldn't have it completed by then, but middle of June. I would
Fence
say.
probably the most important part of that, or get that
Yes.
done first? Okay. Thank you.
Terry, I heard discussion of somebody saying we should be using nets and not a taller fence. I don't recall how that was resolved. Can you just, I guess?
Right,
run that?
the reason we wouldn't want to use netting, anytime that it's, like now we have 42-inch fence, and to go with netting above that to get it to the right height, well, that's right at the right height that, if you got a 10-year-old, they like to climb, and that's not what we'd want to see. If it's higher up, if it's 30 feet off the ground, and then you got netting, it works good, but not at this low of a level.
Also, I would add, Terry, you've mentioned on occasion too that netting is, you're always replacing it, that it wears out quickly and it needs replacement quite often.
That every time we have a ice storm or even a windstorm, that's one of the first places we go to look to see what's happened to our netting.
Okay, any other questions for Terry? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Number 15, authorization for police department to apply for an Office of Highway Safety grant in the amount of $20,000 with a 20% local match. Ryan?
Thank you. Ryan Remmers with the Police Department. Thank you, Mayor. As the Mayor said, we are seeking your permission to apply for a grant. The actual amount is $19,058. It would come from the Office of Highway Safety out in Pierre. Our program that we're proposing would be designed to reduce traffic crashes and increase seatbelt usage. This is similar to some other grants that we've done in the past. This one does have a 20% match along with it. So the federal money would be coming to us. We would use that to pay overtime expenses, 10 hours per week. An officer would be assigned to just work nothing other than traffic enforcement, focusing on speed and seatbelt usage. And then that 20% would be accomplished it's a soft match or an in-kind match, which would allow us to just simply take an existing officer off the existing schedule and assign him to 5 hours per week of doing nothing more than just seatbelt and speed enforcement. That officer that's performing the match requirements would still be able to respond to other calls, but between calls for service, he would be documenting that he's focusing on speed and seatbelt issues and in order to accomplish our match. So we're seeking permission to apply for the grant in the amount of $19,058.
Okay, at this time, I would look for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Beth, second by Mike. And did I say second by Beth? I said motion by Beth, I'm sorry. Second by Mike. And any other discussion, any questions for this Ryan?
I do. Ryan, how do you gauge, we did this last year, correct?
Right.
How
Well,
do
it
you,
was
how do you
the
gauge your
current-
success? How do you know it's worth your time and worth the money doing this?
Right, what we do is, as part of the grant, in fact, I have to report on numbers of traffic crashes. The most recent time that we did a speed and seatbelt campaign was, for 2 years, we did it in and around the schools. So we were able to generate reports at the beginning of our program that showed the current number of traffic crashes within one block of a school. And there, believe it or not, there are 15 different schools in town. So we were able to plot out on a map and calculate and count the number of traffic crashes in a 5-year period prior to us doing this. And then going back toward the end of the grant, when the reporting requirements are such, and to do that same calculation in the same segments of roadways and to show the reduction. And last time around, we were able, I don't remember right offhand the exact percentage of reduction, but it was a significant reduction in crashes within the schools, just simply, as a result of having a police car more often in the schools. Along those same lines, we were able to do a seatbelt survey. What we did is at the very beginning, we did an observational seatbelt survey where we had an officer in plain clothes standing on the side of the road, looking pretty nondescript, and counting cars that were, counting drivers that were wearing their seatbelts, calculated up the percentages, and then came back at the end of the program and did the exact same survey on the same day of the week, same location, same times of the day. And we were able to show like a 13% increase in seatbelt usage for drivers and front seat occupants, anybody that was in the front seat of the car. So that involved a lot of effort in going to schools and talking to kids and community groups and civic groups and explaining the importance of seatbelts along with the enforcement. But to answer your question directly, we're required to report the exact number of traffic crashes. We're going to use this time just total traffic crashes in Watertown and hoping to reduce the number of injured people and total number of crashes.
Will this be a budget item for years to come?
I hope not. Well, I mean, if the question is, will grant money coming somewhat free from Pier
Will our money come in?
Well, this won't cost us any money at all.
Right.
This
In the
won't-
future, it won't.
No, nothing,
Okay.
there's not gonna be any recurring
That's all
cost to
it
this.
is.
This is just taking an existing salary for 5 hours a week and doing this. So the city of Watertown won't experience any increase in costs here.
I got a dumb question. How do you get $19,058?
It's a good question. What we do is, we come up with an average overtime rate for the top 10 most senior patrol officers and sergeants, because that's who typically does the overtime. It's a sign up by seniority thing. So I take the top range. Actually, Kristen takes the top range of their overtime rate, and then the bottom range is the 10th person in seniority. Average that out to that's the $36.65 per hour is their average overtime rate times 520 hours, that's the 10 hours per week for 52 weeks. And you come up, hopefully, if I did my math right, you come up with that $19,058.
Okay, well, there's a rhyme or reason to it. I just thought it was strange. That was an odd number.
It is an odd number. And if I was better at math, I'd have had it worked out right even at 20,000, so I wouldn't have had to answer that question.
Ryan, John wants to know if he has to be a sworn-in officer to count those cars.
We'd be happy to take you. In fact, you can stand there. Yeah, you can, like I said, we had to do that on the same day of the week and same everything. So inevitably, that second one's always like rainy and cold. So it's us standing out there in the rain doing that.
$7 an hour.
I'll sign him up then.
We do 2,000 hours.
Northern chicken. Any other questions for Ryan, anybody? Okay. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
At this time, I will look for council action on it. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 16, Shelley, if you want to handle that for us.
You're in the headlights right there.
Well, I think I can start on this. Select Home Rule Charter Commission members and set first meeting place and time. You have the names of the charter members, don't you? Oh, I thought we did. So if everybody,
Kim,
do you
Kim
want 'em?
compiled that right at the end of the day today, right at 5 o'clock. She sent out an
Okay.
email, I believe, to all the council members.
So you all got the
Wait,
names. Do you?
Just a second. If she sent it to me, I'll go pull it up. You guys want to start the time and place of the first meeting?
Okay. Yeah, I know she did send it to you, and we'll go ahead and set the first meeting in place. The suggestion has been to have it at the police department in their community center. I think it's usually quite open. If that's acceptable to you folks, we need to set up a date and a time to get the first one going.
One thing to consider, one of the people I've nominated works in the school system, so they're a little tight on schedule, 8 to 3 kind of deals. Does anybody else have any time restrictions of those that they've nominated?
You know, I know that the gentleman that I nominated has no real issues with that, but I know there are other folks that do work till 4 o'clock. So I would suggest that you have it maybe after supper, 6 o'clock or so.
I think that's a good idea. That was a question that I had, and I thought that we probably need to.
Yeah, I think it should be 7 o'clock. That works for me if it's okay with you guys. And is the police department okay? Anybody have any issues having it at the PD department? And then we need to set the first meeting.
What kind of timeline are we looking at? Could that work backwards from?
Well, it's going to take them a couple hours a night. And I believe they meet, is it 4 nights, Stanton?
They have to meet at least 4 times, yes.
A minimum of 4 times, and a couple hours every night. So I would suggest we, get this thing going, probably not on a Friday night or a Saturday night, or Wednesday, church night. So you're looking at Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. So whatever you guys want to set up, I'm okay with any of them. Tuesday? Tuesday's a consensus? Okay, so Tuesday night, next week? Week after?
Give people time to get.
Okay, 2 weeks. We got Easter in that week, is it?
Right, because then they set their own meetings from then on.
They will. They'll set their own meeting. So we'll set the first meeting Tuesday, 2 weeks from tomorrow, at 7 o'clock at the PD department. We will
Nominated?
I'll check with the PD, make sure that the community room is available 2 weeks from tomorrow, 7 p.m. And then between Kim and I, we can probably call everybody and let them know. If we have to change the venue, then we're not telling people the wrong information.
Perfect. And did you want to list the names?
Yes. We have Michael Johnson, Lauren Eilers, Nancy York, Mike Cartney, Jim Roby, James Sauer, Dave Lindgren, Tom Marquardt, Donna Vanderpaul, Greg McDonald, Dr. Okay. Roger Randall, John Hawley, Jim Bueller, Don Meyer, Claire Canold, Jake Kroll, Jeff High, Bruce Ford, Dale Christensen. We need one more name from Ward C.
Yeah, that was Brad Thorson.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Okay. We got our set, ready to go? Perfect. We will, we'll move on to number 7. Do we need to you don't need any motion or anything on that, we're just good to go? All right.
Yep.
Number 17, consideration of bids for the 20th Avenue South and Foley Road intersection realignment project and the 2014 street improvement project. Tom, this is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. We received one bid for the 20th Avenue and Foley Road project, which is the bringing 20th Avenue into a T intersection and leveling out that curve down there to make it safer for the trucks for access to the co-op and the fertilizer company down there. And this one we also get, the bid was $271,549, which was higher than the engineer's estimate, but does maximize our agricultural grant, which is based on 60%. So we will get a full $162,000 on that. So, and the other one is for the Foley for 20th Avenue, continuing on from the turkey plant to the railroad tracks, and that bid came in at $211,252. 50% of that will be paid by the co-op according to our cooperative, our development agreement. So the total package for A and B, schedules A and B, is $482,801.85. McLaughlin Schultz was the only bidder that we had on the project. We recommend award.
So what is our final cost for us?
For the first one, it'd be about $110,000, and for the next one is $106,000. So.
All right, at this time, I would look for a motion and a second. Motion by Beth, second by Bruce. Any discussion, any questions for Tom?
Tom, I do, and I'm gonna go back to it, but there's a portion of that I struggle with. And that's the portion that goes to the railroad tracks, that second portion here. Did you have the map on that thing that we used weeks ago to look at?
I don't, but
I don't see the value of that from a city standpoint. I see the value from the co-op standpoint, but I don't see the purpose of what the city is paying to have that road extended. It's a road to nowhere. It's a road to the co-op's use of that land in the future. And for us to pay that money just seems, I haven't been convinced that that's our obligation to pay that, or that it's responsible to do that.
Yeah, if you can show us where it's actually going to stop at, Tom, that would be very good, where their access will go in at.
Excuse me. Basically, it'll start at the end of the asphalt by the entrance to the old turkey plant and go west all the way to the railroad tracks. At that point, they have one access going south. Now, it's possible they are building a new access road into here. We could stop it short of going across this area. But there are two residents that are further to the west, and this will be probably our only opportunity to get that road paved if you want to do it. Right now, all the trucks are going in and coming in along there. If you look clear to the west here, their spur comes in right through here, right about the curve. And there will be quite a few heavy trucks, and we anticipate there'd be a lot of dust and everything else kicked up by the trucks and the traffic. So we're recommending that we go ahead with the project all the way in to the railroad tracks.
Well, there's still nothing, Tom, and I don't mean to be argumentative with you, it's just a matter of opinion, but I can understand where your pointer is at. I can understand our obligation to somewhere in there, because that's where their main access is. But the residents that have been down there have been there under the whatever they have for a road now, and the future use of that, potentially future use of that for the co-op, I just don't see where that's our obligation. I'm okay with it right to there, but I find it hard to believe that we should be paying that money to go beyond that point. And I just haven't been convinced of the reason to do this at our previous meeting, and I'm not convinced tonight.
Is there a reason why it goes all the way down? I mean, do the trucks not have the ability to come into on the east side of that water?
The trucks, the Mayor, the trucks will have the ability to turn off here. They do have a second driveway, or third driveway actually, along the railroad tracks, and that's why we propose to go there. If you wish to stop it at their second entrance, which will be the main entrance into the co-op, is my understanding, we can certainly stop it there.
Right.
And this is a unit price contract, we just adjust the units accordingly.
And we're really looking at about triple the amount of vehicles coming in this next year than what we were last year, is that correct?
That is correct.
I think Mike makes a good point, but I guess I'd counter it with that if we're gonna mobilize and do that road now, how much further is to finish it off and for future use, I guess? Can you, I guess, balance those against each other for us?
We would probably save about 25% of the second project cost by not going that all the way to the west. But this will be probably the last slice at the apple you're gonna get, so.
What if we never did it?
Then it'll stay a gravel road forever.
Unless they decide that, unless you're a homeowner or you're the co-op that wants to do it, because it's their need, right? It's a road to nowhere, isn't that correct?
It's a road that goes in, you know, there are two homes that are further on out there, but its primary use would be for the industrial development to the south. And I know that there have been several other industries that have expressed an interest along the gravel road, but I don't think they're going to be, this is a wetland, so they're most happily not going to develop on that particular area. So if you brought it into the east side of that wetland, we'd probably be adequate.
Are the homes that are back there, are they within the city limits?
Just I was gonna ask, is that not city property anyway, right?
I don't believe that they are in the city limits.
I see we got Craig up here right now too, and Craig, you probably have maybe some ideas of future development opportunities
Craig-
there, I don't know.
Craig Atkins with the Watertown Development Company. I certainly didn't come here tonight to talk about this particular issue, but probably more just from a future planning perspective. I would probably really encourage you to just build the road to the railroad crossing. There has been a pretty large demand for property that has access to rail. And while we don't have anything currently looking at that area, on 2 different occasions in the last 5 years, we've looked at very large parcels that utilize rail that would continue south of where the CHS property and the Watertown Co-op property is. And so you could do it today, or maybe, put it off, and we don't really have, a lot of say in this one way or another, but that has been an area that we've looked at. The other thing is there's some state-owned land there that, on and off in the past, we've had some discussions with the game fish and parks about whether or not that land would potentially be available for development, because it's a game production area that probably doesn't get used as much as it would if it were someplace else. So just to give you a little more insight as to whether or not there's some viability for some access on the north side of the property west of the CHS side, I would just tell you that we have had discussions about that in the past, and because it's one of the few areas where we actually have access to the Burlington Northern Rail, who knows what kind of project in the future could drive us to that. But if you don't do it today, it's not a deal breaker by any stretch, but if the funds are in place to do it, to get to that rail at this point, I would just encourage you to consider that.
Tom, we're really looking at what, about $30,000 additional cost to us to continue that to the point you've got it set right now? Would that be right? I think you said 25%.
It'd be about 25%, but that would be shared with the co-op, so, of the project cost. So we'd be splitting it 50-50 to extend it now.
I think that's one thing we need to look at right now is they're willing to pay for half of it right now. Now, I don't totally disagree with Mike on a road to nowhere, but if we think back, every road that goes through Pheasant Ridge, every road that goes through Andrews Industrial Park, every road that goes through any of those industrial parks, at one time they were a road to nowhere.
The half that we're paying, but still potentially we can reclaim the cost if that gets developed on the other side. Is that not the plan? Did you say Grand Guard, Grand Guard own most of that, or is part of that then Park and Rec on that side?
On the north side of the road is
Can't
Grand
take
Guard, but Grand Guards, if they would develop on the western part of their property, they would be assessed according to whatever we determine there. But west of from this point west, it's basically a wetland to the north side, so I don't think anybody's going to develop there. I mean,
So
it'd be very expensive to develop.
That's Game Fish and Park property then?
It's actually owned by Grand Guard, but it would
They
be
can't do
expensive
anything
to
with it.
develop. But it does have rail access.
Okay, any other questions for Tom? Thanks, Craig. I believe I have a motion, a second on the floor. Looking for council action. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, number 18. Consideration of bids for the 2014 street improvement project and paving cemetery project. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you, Mayor. This is again the project to actually construct 11th Street behind Hercus Implement and to dependable sanitation. We had discussion a while back on the funding. Half of this will be paid for with the $82,164 will be paid by the Hofteaser development, and then half of a half to be paid by Hercus Implement. The rest will come from our funds that we set aside for paving gravel roads. The second part of this was Schedule 1. Schedule 2 is for the cemetery roads, and I've been informed by the Parks Department that they don't want to go ahead with a schedule that's a lot more expensive than they had budgeted. You'll note that their cost for asphalt went up considerably to $104 per ton and $150 per ton, so they're recommending not awarding in Schedule 2, and they'll come back at a later date for that. So the recommendation then is to award for bid schedule number 1 only.
Okay.
And this is still McLaughlin and Schultz as well.
All right, so I would be looking for a motion and a second to
So moved.
approve option 1. Is that correct, Tom?
Schedule 1, yes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Dan, second by Randy. Any discussion, any comments for Tom? Hearing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor? Passed. Number 19, discussion of petition to pave 21st Street West, south of Highway 212.
Give me a second to get back there. I was on it a little bit ago, but the council has received a petition to pave 21st Street southwest, basically from Highway 212 south to where the pavement and it starts, about 430 feet. I'm sure this has been before the council in the past, but I couldn't find any records, recent history. But Sheehan Cycle owns on both sides, and the petitioners, to my understanding, live south of this point and would like to see this improved with asphalt pavement. In talking with my staff, they said the biggest objection that Sheehan had originally was that they didn't feel that they should have to put an urban section in. This curb and gutter to the south, 21st Street North does not have curb and gutter. And I think that's why it didn't get paved last time. What I'm recommending is that the council receive the petition, refer it back to engineering department, and we'll meet with Mr. Sheehan and see if we can come to some conclusion. I think the council, if it's going to happen again, because none of the petitioners are property owners, we may have to sweeten the pot to make it happen. So
How far south does that go, Tom? Can you point it with your pointer?
it ends right at this point here. So we got curb and gutter and asphalt here, and then we pick up asphalt on the north side. So we got a stretch of gravel roads, and it's a heavily used road. So
Sheehan owns on both sides?
that's correct.
Hey, Tom, question for you. So all the petitioners, none of the assessments will go towards them? They're
That-
zero?
That's correct. But they've paid for the road in front of their place, so.
Can you show me the cross streets 11th, 12th, and where the petitioners are all coming from? I drove down this way and it made a lot of dust. I was trying to.
You have 10th Avenue, 11th Avenue, and 12th Avenue South, and 21st Street, 22nd Street. So, I mean, that's where most of the petitioners come from this area here. I wouldn't swear that they all did. And again, this is not typically how we do projects, but they wanted to bring it to your attention. That's why they signed the petition.
Tom, if you go to the, well, it'll be the west, to the next road, I don't know what that would be, 23rd, is it, or down?
To the
That-
west?
Yeah, that one. Is that a curb and gutter type road, or is that just a rural section type road? And the next question is throughout that development down there, is that all curb and gutter?
You know, for the most part, the development down here is curb and gutter. I'm not sure on the street here. I'd have to, I believe it is.
Yes.
We do have one of the petitioners here, and I think she can answer your questions probably better than I can.
Yes, it does.
Go ahead and state your name and.
Bonnie Glines, and I live out on 2037th, 11th Avenue Southwest. And we got a petition out to get that road fixed.
Anybody got any questions of Bonnie? She lives down in that area? No? Okay, and this was just for discussion purposes only. There will be no action taken on this tonight, but it gives you some food for thought, and whether you want to bring it back, we should talk to Mike a little bit, see where he stands on it, what the issues are on his side also.
I guess what I would recommend doing is that you receive the petition, refer it to the engineering department, so.
Okay, so you'll need a motion and a second to receive that.
If you would, please.
What is that committing us to, other than, is it committing us to anything?
We'll have to bring it back to you after we meet with Mr. Sheehan, so.
So our motion is what, just to acknowledge receipt of the petition?
Basically, and refer it to engineering.
If I could just, Bonnie took the time to come here, so I would ask that just what motivated this petition drive, and why are you here, and why are they asking for this?
Well, it gets so rooted all the time, and it just shakes our cars apart. And alignment's not cheap. And we just feel it means all the other businesses had to pay for their part of the road, that she and Cycle should have to pay theirs, or something should be done with that road besides gravel, because it don't stay.
I do know it gets terribly washboarded.
Yes, it does.
If you go by paint, it's a great thing just to, it mixes up your paint while you're driving across there. But it is, there is a lot of traffic on there, and it just gets washboarded, something terrible.
It kicks up a lot of dust,
Yep.
too.
My pastures are
What-
better than that road is.
Are-
When I lived on the farm.
Other than those two, what's the next? You have to go further east, how far east you gotta go to?
20 miles.
No, there's nothing for quite a while, and that's not the direct route then. That's,
Going down that road too is where our mailboxes are.
16th Street would be the next one to the east.
Coming down that 21st Street there, where we need gravel or paved.
just at the end of the current pavement, or
Pardon?
just at the end of the current pavement is where the mail is?
Yeah, you come down, then it's right on the side there.
Okay, I'm gonna entertain a motion and a
have to
second
talk
on
here on
this
this
to get it moving a little bit.
Second.
Motion by Beth, second by Randy. Any more quick discussion on this? And this motion will be to accept the petitions and to move it towards the engineering department. Okay. Any more discussion?
But it doesn't commit us.
It does not commit us. Okay, I will look for council action. All those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay. Any old business? Any new business? Dan?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm on a committee that was chosen by, I'm not exactly sure who selected it, but I might mention his initials are ST. And it's talking about a 125th celebration for the state of South Dakota. The governor has been involved in this, and the governor has indicated that he would really like to see the bigger communities support recognizing the 125th anniversary of the state. You could argue that's not necessarily this community, but it is the state, and we're a part of that, and we're one of the bigger communities. Anyway, there's quite a committee that has been meeting a couple of times. I was meeting with them last Thursday, and we had another meeting, and so the meeting that I went to was a little bit short, but I did give you an agenda of some of the items that they're talking about having on that day. The day is August 17th, and it starts with the governor being there. But all of a sudden, there became a lot of these issues. And they're thinking thousands of people, by the way. And Dave, all of you guys, I can give you a copy of this, but it's pretty premature, but it could give you some ideas, at least, of what's being talked about. I'll give you guys these afterwards, but they're talking about the items that are price items would be things like a porta potty. Well, when you get thousands of people, you're talking about hundreds of dollars to have porta potties, and the potential of having to provide transportation out there, from Watertown to get out there would be some cost. A lot of these are freebies. They would like to see Sherwin-Linton. There's a charge to get a Sherwin-Linton to come, Greg Hansen Band, Old Time Fiddlers. I don't know if that's coming around or not. The Municipal Band, and these were all things they were talking about when I left. They talked about some Native American dancers. They talked about square dancing. And you can see several of the things there. There was a shootout. They talked about having a shootout. And if they got the people, they talked about getting them from Omaha. And anyway, what it's all amounts to, I'll shorten it up. A lot of these were discussion items, but when I left, they were talking, it would be Watertown, this community's share of this would be 10 to 12,000. And that was just in the talking stages. Later, they came back and said 12 to 15. Joy Nelson called me and said, after they started firming this up, it really became closer to 12 to 15,000. And so, my job was to come back to the council and find out if there's any money. Well, I didn't really know where to start with this, so I talked to our esteemed leader, Shelley, and Shelley says that there is money set aside for situations like this, and that it could be handled through the city. We could donate something. If it's 12 to 15,000, we're talking, they really are talking thousands of people they think are going to show up on August 17th. And so I guess I'm requesting $5,000 toward to be given to this planning committee, up to 5,000. Now, they're talking about writing grants and, and maybe, possibly, it wouldn't be $5,000, but I'm asking tonight to have the city share of this be $5,000. And I'm open for questions. I've been to 2 meetings. I might be able to answer some of them, but you can see there are a lot of people that are involved in this. They're asking a lot of people to be a part of it, and there are a lot of ideas being thrown around, and so I would be open to any questions.
I think, Dan, this is going to be an exciting weekend. We were going to have the governor there, as you said, also the faces of Mount Rushmore, the characters are going to be there. I think it's just a real opportunity for Watertown. The governor has specifically asked us if we would promote this 125th, and what better location than to have it at the Joy Ranch with the 1800s look on that. I think it's a great project, and I'd like to see you guys move forward on this. I think it's something the council you could be very proud of doing. So should we ask for a motion on this? Motion by Russ. This would be out of the
Council projects. There's $10,000 every year that's budgeted into council projects, and it's up to the council to allocate what you feel is necessary, if anything, during the year.
And we can do this and make a motion for that tonight without noticing this in any manner other than
Yes.
Neil?
Yep.
Second.
So I have a motion by Russ, second by Beth. Any more discussion on this, guys? Hearing none, I'll look for council action on this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And,
Good work, Dan, on doing all this. Thanks.
yeah, nice. They have. It's going to be very good. Any liaison reports?
Mayor, I have 2 items. One's a little middle-aged business here. I just wanted to maybe mention everybody that I've had several discussions on the roundabouts. And it's a passionate topic. Some people are adamantly opposed, and I think once they get educated that they back off that a little bit. But it's a 2-step process. I think it's roundabouts in general. But I think the real issues come out as people, I think, after they get educated on them, say there's a lot of merit to them, but it's that position they're concerned about. So I just wanted to throw that out there for general discussion. Are you folks hearing anything on that topic?
In no roundabout way. Most people, they're very direct about it. I have had a number of people ask me about that. And as much as they might be concerned with the whole idea of a roundabout, they're very specifically concerned with that location. And but I am hearing that. Now, is my phone ringing off the hook? No. But as the topic comes up, there usually is a discussion about that. And we are only in the engineering stages, is that correct?
We are.
It
Yeah,
has not been an approved project for there?
It is not approved yet for this project. We are just in the engineering phase. Thomas had some work out there. I think that we're not very far along on that yet, are we, Tom?
Well, we've got quite a bit of the design done at this point. I guess we'll be coming back, for advertisement for bids on it. And I guess if you have concerns about it, but you notice that in both Wisconsin and Minnesota, most of the places where they're putting the roundabouts is by the schools. And I don't know if that just happens to be because that's where the towns are growing. That's where they put the new schools. But, it just seems to be a correlation there. And the studies have shown that it is safer for the kids, even in the walking to the schools. And I know people are apprehensive. It's a fairly new concept, and I was even apprehensive about bringing it up because it, but I do think in this particular application, it is one of the better options that we do have. But the time to consider it would be when we're building the street, not after we get the street built. So.
Tom, the thing that I've heard, Tom, on it is that the people with experience on it have said, if you're going to do it, make it big enough so, like the buses, those 26 buses that are going to be down there, don't get caught in that, with a single lane or something. So they said, if you're going to do it, it has to be big enough to work.
The other thing you got with that is, from the gravel pits over on, what is that, 31st or 32nd, whatever that is, or the McLaughlin pits, there is a lot of truck traffic hauling gravel, sand, rock, whatever, to and from those locations. And so they use 19th and then they use 14th Avenue pretty extensively. So to goes to Dan's point, is it needs to be big enough to be able to accommodate that kind of traffic there.
Yeah,
size-wise.
and Mike, I'm gonna just mention, we've had conversations about, the county puts road restrictions on the county roads, so they can't carry 90,000 pounds. And actually, it's been brought to our attention that there's been a number of trucks already, you take a look at the concrete trucks, the gravel trucks, driving on our roads, which are not ready for that type of wear and tear. I think we should really consider the city of Watertown putting some type of road restrictions on ours, so we don't have that. Those concrete trucks can haul up to 90,000 pounds, and our roads aren't built for that. So I think we should really, we should take a peek at that, based on exactly what you were saying.
Thank you for those comments. My second item is the liaison report from the utilities. I just wanted to mention to people, and you may have read this in the newspaper, heard it in the radio station. They had to buy a lot of extra gas and such because of the cold temperatures. And I just wanted to point this out because utilities keeps a very large reserve balance. But there's a reason for that. They spent an extra $1 million to make up for that. So that $1 million went up in smoke pretty quickly there. But of course, they do that so our residents' utility rates don't have to jump around. So I just wanted to reiterate that, the importance and why they keep those reserves because of a very unique situation. Thank you.
Okay, and just a couple more things. Jeff, I see you out there. I want to thank you for getting those sweepers out. I know that people have said the gravel is out there, but I noticed today they were just picking it up like crazy. So thank you for that. And then executive session, we do have a need to go into executive session for contract negotiations and personnel. I would expect some action this evening after coming out of this, so I'll need a motion to go into exec. So motion by Bruce.
Second.
Second by Randy. All those in favor? Okay, we are now in executive session. Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to this evening's after our executive session. We do need to make a motion and a second. You want to read that motion?
Sure. The motion is to authorize the gratuitous transfer of up to a 2-acre parcel of land within the Airport Industrial Addition to the Watertown Development Company for an economic development purpose.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Randy, second by Beth. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carried. I think there's nothing else. Motion to adjourn. Motion by Bruce, second by Mike. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the special city council meeting on Friday, April 11th, 2014. I will call the meeting to order, and we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Shelley, if you'll do roll call for us.
Albertson?
Here.
Bueller? Bueller?
Here.
Danforth?
Here.
Manty? Here. Meisenheimer?
Here.
Riefenberger?
Here.
Roby?
Here.
Solom?
Here.
Tupper?
Here.
Wilkins? Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Shelley. And number one on the agenda is the approval agenda. I do need a motion and a second on that.
So moved.
Motion by Bruce, second by Randy. Any discussion on that? Any changes? Hearing none, I do need council action. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Number two, presentation of petition to repeal resolution number 14-09 and set date for public vote. Shelley, is any discussion you want to have on that for us?
Yeah, I do need to go through a couple issues. Basically, the petitions to refer resolution number 14-09 regarding the construction and funding of the multipurpose facility were received by the Finance Office. The petitions were in the proper format as required by state statute pertaining to referred measures. The county auditor was contacted to determine the number of registered voters as of the day the petitions were received. 5% of the registered voters was 622 names that were required to refer the resolution to a vote. The names were then verified as registered voters within the city of Watertown, and it was determined that there was enough valid signatures to refer resolution number 14-09 to a public vote. With this presentation of the petitions, I will ask that the council set the date for the vote. There are basically two options that state statute allows. The vote can be scheduled to the next available election, which would be the general election in November, or a special election can be held on a Tuesday, no less than 30 days from today. If the special election is chosen, the first Tuesday available after the 30 days would be May 13th. Because school is still in session, I did speak to the school to see what day they would have available after May 13th, and it was determined that June 10th will work. That is basically 1 week after the county election, which we won't be competing with them for both their election workers, for the counting machine. So that seems to be a day that can be looked at. So basically that if a special election is determined by the council, June 10th would be the day that would be anticipated. I can ask any questions, otherwise I'll leave it up to you folks to determine that date.
Estimate on cost of special election?
Special elections like any other election, and we'll spend anywhere from $6,000 to $7,000.
I would make a motion that we hold the vote on June 10th.
Okay.
Regarding
I
resolution
am
10.
I'm going to ask for that motion, and if you would hold off just 1 second. Okay, are you okay, Shell? Everything's done? Okay, I will ask for a motion now.
Okay, there you have it.
Can we ask any questions, or is it moving
Yep,
through?
yep, just in a minute. Okay, so I have a motion by Bruce.
Second.
And the motion included what date?
June 10th.
Okay, a motion by Bruce to hold public vote for June the 10th, and a second by Beth, and I will open it for discussion now.
The county election is the week before that?
Yes.
So,
I was told by the county June 3rd
So,
is their primary.
I guess my question is, economics doesn't probably make any difference, but why wouldn't we just schedule if people come out to vote to be on the same day? I mean, am I off base on that, or it just seems like...
We're not allowed to do that. We could have it on the same day. They'd be in two separate locations. And then we share election workers. And so that gets to be very difficult to find people who are willing to sit 10 hours in a chair. So, and then also the school had a conflict, and it was just better on the 10th for everybody. So we kind of let that go at that point.
Yep, exactly. Any other questions?
Do we have all the materials necessary to show the public what we're voting on? Do we have blueprints of
No,
the-
but we're,
and those kinds of things?
at that particular time, they will have everything available. There will be marketing material out there that will show the project, absolutely. Mike, did you have something you want to say? Yep, go ahead, sit down, and then just push the button and state your name, and, okay, you're good to go.
Okay. The reason that we're gonna move this up to June 10th is because we don't want them voting at it at the same time in a general election. You know
I hear what
my
you're saying, Mike,
opinion.
if I might, I think I know where you're going on it. You're thinking we should hold the election in November. I think what, the reason that the council would look at a newer or earlier date is for a time element. If we're going to build this thing, and if the folks in Watertown approve this building, we need to start digging in the spring of 2015, and the work that would need to be done if we waited till November we wouldn't be ready until the end of 15, which would go through the entire season of winter season. So I think it's pertinent for the community to understand that time is of the essence on this thing for building. You don't pour cement very often in November.
Oh, I'm working at it right now, though.
Yeah, yeah.
But where I'm going
That's
with
what we're
this,
hoping for.
where I'm going with this is if I have this, or you have this election on June 10th, we can get maybe 15% of the turnout, because it's a special election held off someplace where we don't normally hold elections unless, and I'm sure that's going into the arena, am I not correct? Right.
At the school where we always hold our
Yeah.
city elections, yes.
But if you hold your regular elections, they're always held out to the extension center, or it seems like they're always out there. And so, other than for special elections or something for the city, and the people don't turn out for those. Me and you both know that, and so that's why I would like to see it under the November election, not necessarily any other reason, but
Yeah.
because we held this back 2 weeks, because if we had voted on it before we voted in Skype, we could have had it, I could have had those petitions in time to have this in the June election. But as
I
it
don't think
went,
you could have, Mike. But no
that's
matter
2
what,
weeks
I
more,
mean,
and that's the exact amount of time that I had to do it.
I don't think it really matters because we're beyond that
Yeah.
point. We need
Well,
to.
and that's what I'm saying,
We need to do
no.
this. We need to get this.
And I wanted to point that out, so I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Mike, I think that one thing that's critical, I don't like the idea of spending any city dollars unnecessarily myself. But I think the fact of the matter is, if the people of this community vote this in, we stand a much greater risk in regards to the costs associated to this project by waiting those extra 6 months or whatever that is, 5-6 months, than we do, well, which equates to a lot more time actual in construction mode, than what the $6,000 or $7,000 is. So I think it's from a efficiency of dollars standpoint, I think it has a lot of merit in having the special election as soon as we can.
This $6,000 or $7,000 didn't bother me at all, Mike. I mean, because this is an election that the city needed to have, and that's just my own belief. But the thing that bothers me the most is trying to hold a special election. I've been around a long time, and I've watched this happen, and you get about a 15% to a 20% turnout on special elections. First off, they're not advertised, they're not out front like a regular election is, because we're already talking about the June 3rd election and all of the candidates that are coming up. And this election here, as much as we can scuttle it, we will. I'll advertise it as much as I can, so you realize where I'm at. Thanks.
I think it'll take both sides. Well, whether they're for it or against it, there's going to be a lot of advertising. I don't think anybody's going to try to scuttle it or shut it down. So I do have a motion and a second on the floor. I will look for council action. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. Okay, we have one opposed. Got that, Shell? Do we need a roll call? Are we okay? All right. Motion carried. Number 3, we need to have a consideration of Resolution 1415 establishing rules for special alcoholic beverage licenses. Stanton, you want to kind of touch base on this one more time? I think this is the 3rd or 4th time this has been. Well, let's get this wrapped.
Yeah, as you mentioned during the previous working session, and the conversation was brief, it got cut short because we ran a little short on time. There are some blanks that are in the proposed resolution that need.
Say, Stanton?
Yeah.
Is there any way you could bring that a little closer to you? They're struggling to hear you.
Okay. There are some blanks in the resolution that's attached to your agenda that hopefully at today's meeting you guys can fill in, and if you're in a position and ready to, you could actually take action on this resolution to get it approved. So the blanks that need to be filled in is how many of these licenses can be issued during any calendar year, and under item 6, there are 4 classes of license. Do you want all of them to be eligible for issuance, and if so, at what cost?
Okay, thanks, Stanton. At this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by
Second.
Mike, second by Dan. Okay, now I'll open that for discussion, and let's fill in the lines.
All right, Stanton, can I ask you a question for clarification? As I've read this, it always says, it talks about, current liquor license holder, but it says, or any organization allowable under state statute. And then it's got some examples of that. Could the average Joe off the street who doesn't fit into one of those categories and doesn't hold a license, can they come in and apply to do this and get one under what we're looking at now? No. Okay, so they have to fit, either I've already got a license, or I fit into that one of those categories, and
Those are the only people that, or entities that would be eligible for issuance.
okay.
And will this be designed to replace the transferring of liquor licenses that we currently have going on now?
You could still, I mean, you could just flat say that this is the mechanism moving forward, that we're no longer going to transfer if you want to, but the transfer statute still exists, so you could allow it to continue to occur, but I think the intention would be that moving forward, the applicant would, or the license holder would continue to stay open at one location, and you'd issue this special license as well, but that's the council decision to make.
I think you'd find in most cases on that, most of those big events that those organizations now, close up for and move their license, I think a good share of them are still gonna close up because they gotta move most of their staff over there with it, so.
But it just seems to me like, because there are concerns at times from the general public on where some of these things go or when, I think it should continue to come to the council for approval. Okay, I jumpstart this thing. I think, as I mentioned in one of our last meetings, I think if we went with the allowance of 2 licenses per year, 3 days each, that would give them a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Do they have the right, if they were to come here, can we issue a variance on this, or is this gospel? I mean, if somebody came in and said, I need a 4th day, can we variance that, or is it set?
Until you change this resolution, this would be the...
This is it?
Yep.
The only thing I might add, Mike, I know we've had that discussion, and let's say they have a Monday being some kind of a holiday, maybe you need to have a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, maybe 4 days or 5 days. I think 4 would probably work.
Could I make a
They aren't gonna use it anymore in what they...
Could I make a
They're gonna need
suggestion? I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mike. Just a suggestion. As you look at the resolution that's currently before you, the draft, under item 2, it indicates that it can be established by the council, but not to exceed 15. So as to each applicant that comes before you, you can decide, should it be 4, should it be 3?
As long as they come to us for approval.
Yes. Yep. They have to come to you for approval.
Perfect.
So now my next question is really the only hard one is the fees, and what's our purpose in the fees? What are we looking to accomplish? And then I guess I gotta ask the question as to why would we differ between them? Why don't we just set a fee and be done with it?
Set a fee per day? I mean, would that?
Per time.
Per event.
Per event.
My comment on that is, A, needs to cover our costs, and B, it has to be significant enough such that we don't get a bunch of frivolous licenses. If it's so cheap, anybody, I'll just placeholders, if you will. I want it to be a serious applicant, so it needs to be not extravagant, but big enough that it's a serious application.
Stanton, what was the cost when they do these transfers? Did we have a fee involved with those before? And so in comparison, what would have those costs been today if they were doing what we're talking about?
The current fee for transfer from place and then back is $300, and I believe $150 goes to the Department of Revenue and $150 stays here in Watertown. Under this licensing scheme, no money goes to the Department of Revenue. It all stays locally, so the city won't be remitting any portion of these license fees to Pier.
I guess I don't perceive it as a way to try to make money, but what kind of cost do we have incurred? Because this stuff comes on a regular council meeting, so we don't have to do any special meetings or anything anyway. So other than just a little bit of paperwork, what kind of cost do we actually have?
I'd defer to Shelley, but I'm certain there are some publication costs and administrative time.
If a public hearing has to be held, it's costs about $40 to $42 to publish that in the paper. You have some staff time in that, not very much, and I guess as a recommendation to you, I wouldn't set them based on recovering cost. I think Don made a good point. Set them so that people are serious about what they're doing. If they can only have two, make a count. And when this came up the first time, one of the concerns with number C, the special on-sale license, that is to sell liquor. Concern was with current on-sale liquor license holders was that if that fee isn't set, they pay $1,500 a year to renew that license. And those licenses are quite valuable in Watertown right now because we have a shortage, because we have more than what state statute allows. And to set that fee and allow, these other than liquor license holders to have them, they feel that might adversely affect their ability to get that business that they currently are allowed to get now.
That brings
So-
a different question to me when you say that. Okay, I'm a bar and I have X license to serve liquor and I apply for this. My license is basically the same. In other words, if all I can sell is beer and wine, that's all I can sell at this other, right? So we're not gonna open that up where somebody that sells beer and wine can all of a sudden sell everything else.
Right, but Ducks Unlimited could come in and ask for a special license to sell liquor. And they wouldn't have to go through an existing liquor license holder. And that was their concern, is that they would be eligible to get that.
You're exactly right. And I
But
think-
couldn't we, I mean, maybe it begs the question of whether we should even issue any of those licenses to a non-license holder then, the ones that are selling liquor.
But then you would run into what we talked about with the chamber when they hold their event at the lake. They sell beer.
Beer, not this
Right.
license number 3.
No, I understand that.
But they wouldn't, I don't know.
No, I hear you.
I think too many of us have them on.
But in that case, they don't sell liquor.
They do not, right, that is correct. But I think you need to make that kind of a stiff price.
What you're saying, Mike, though, is that the chamber couldn't get, that wouldn't be an option for them. The option
Would-
the only way somebody can
I'm not
have that
suggesting
is they
I'm
already
saying
have an
that's something
existing.
that we should at least look at
Yeah.
if there's concerns about the controls and the issues that are there.
That would be
then
one
maybe
way to.
that's one we shouldn't issue.
One way to control it as opposed to dollars is just say, if you don't hold that license, you can't transfer to another spot.
Put a value on it of the transfer, whatever that dollar amount is, but then just say the only ones that can acquire that are the ones that are current license holders for that
Shelley,
equivalent license.
I have a question for you guys, because I thought I've heard just two different things here. The Chamber of Commerce could not come in and get a special on sale license. That's correct.
If
could.
it was allowable by the council, yes, they could.
So the Chamber could get an on sale license, Ducks Unlimited could get an on sale license.
Yes.
County Pro Pheasants could get an on sale license.
Yes.
We would bypass any of the license holders.
Yes.
In Watertown to allow them to have that.
Here's
Yeah.
Yes,
here's
it-
my
it-
concern
it
with
would-
that. If,
I
who
think that's not-
controls that license then when they're on their own property or when they're running this thing? Because entities that have a liquor license, they have TAM certified bartenders and they
Right.
have liability insurance and they have all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but I mean, who's gonna be their bartenders? Who's gonna control these things?
One of the things that I discussed with some of the other council members is that should this be application, kind of piggybacking on what John said, should these applications be submitted in time where not only do we have the publication in the paper, but that we go through the whole background check as well on whoever's name is being responsible for the license?
I guess my concern is that there should be a way that we have those tied into even the chamber and the Ducks and anybody has to go through a license holder to get this, rather than us. Absolutely. I think it needs to go through a license holder rather than us saying, well, you can just get this for the event.
So what we're saying is separate C out of there as a separate issue.
No, you have to have it in there, but it's just not allowable you just take off the back half of the sentence that says, or organizations allowable. It's just only for current holders of those types of licenses.
That's what I think.
So we have to pull that one out of this
No, you leave it right where it is. You just take the last part of the sentence off as to who's allowed that. Correct, Stanton?
Which sentence are you looking at?
You're looking at number 3, right? It says only current on-sale liquor license holders can apply with, period.
Oh, you're looking at what Shelley wrote.
Yeah,
I was looking at the
we don't have that
resolution.
in front of us, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
You all need to pay attention.
You all have it, he just printed it. You all have it.
No, he took my printed copy, Shelley. I want that
Hey,
to go
Mike.
on the record.
Mike, maybe what you do is give it to Ray, he could put it on the board up here and we can all see it. We don't care, as long as it's not talking about me. Yeah.
That's funny.
Just so you know what you're looking at here, I had talked to Shelley this morning, and when I went through this, it just wasn't clear to me what these 4 categories meant, so I asked her to put something together that described that. That's what you're looking at here, and this is,
Yeah, I think he's gonna shrink it down. He'll shrink it down so we can all see it. Okay. Yes, we can.
Now my button won't
So
come
special on-sale license, only current on-sale liquor license holders can apply along with the organization allowable under state statute. So state statute, is that a key word in there?
Yeah, those are the civic, fraternal, not-for-profit type entities that are eligible, like the chamber.
Can we pull those out? I think,
we can be tighter, not looser.
Just a question on that. I like the idea, I agree with it. What if some one of those entities does want to have a liquor sale at their event? They just have to get tied in with somebody that's already has a license. And
And that's not any different than it is right now.
Right,
that's exactly right.
That's not any different than it is now, except that that license holder, in theory, could still be operating in his regular business and have this one, where right now we gotta shut him down over there and move him over to this other.
right. But the way this reads, they could come in and get that license without going through. So I say we pull that out of there.
I think
That's what my
pull
thing
the
is.
last part of that, it's just, you put a period after.
But that's not what's in our resolution. Mike.
Okay, but that's fine. What I'm saying up here, though, in order to make that match, it's you have to be a current license holder of that equivalent license in order to qualify, period.
Yes.
So whatever that takes to, because I don't have the other one.
And then if you do that, then go down to the bottom and make the same, price the same on all of them, because we've taken the cost issue isn't the deal anymore, because we've
But
limited
you do
them.
need to set one here on this, though.
Well, that's included in the A, B, C, D, but those could just all be one, which they were talking about making it a higher price, but it's not really an issue of being higher if we've regulated to it, that they have to have the license to do it anyway.
Is there a reason why we wouldn't just stick the $300 on there like it's been in the past and just have it the same for all of them and be done?
Or just leave the transfer or
So Stanton, if I understand it correctly, the wing fling would be able to still come to the city and get this. Am I correct?
to go through somebody that has a license.
Not on their, but you mean individually, or would they have to piggyback onto an existing licensee?
Pardon me?
Would the chamber have to piggyback with an existing licensee, or could they come in on their own?
I believe they come in on their own.
Okay, and then the only thing they couldn't come in, groups like the chamber could not come in and make application for a special on-sale license that allows for liquor. Okay, so,
Wine to the, as described on this document,
Yes.
on 1, 2, and 4. And the price should be the same as far as I'm concerned, and then if one of those entities wants a full liquor, then they've gotta be arranged with somebody that's already holding that license.
Can I just say one thing about the fee? The 300, it was to transfer there was 150, to transfer back was 150. The number of days was not contemplated. So I don't know if you guys want to set a per day fee not to exceed, or if you just want to say, if you want to have it for up to 15 days, 300, anywhere from 1 to 15 days is going to be the $300. That's
I'd say keep it simple,
That
just have
need-
one charge.
that needs to be
I personally
contemplated.
think that you guys, just so you know where I'm coming from, in my opinion only, that on C, for special on-sale license, should be significantly higher than the others.
Or not doesn't our transfer of license allow that already anyway, exactly what we're talking about?
Say it again?
Okay, so if you have to be a current license holder to get one of these special on-sale liquor licenses, so say you're Ducks Unlimited, I'm coming to you, and I need Second Street Station that has a full liquor license in order to get one of these. Okay, doesn't our current rule about transfer of license cover that, or are we trying to make it so that they can stay open with their license and get a different one? That's what we're trying to do, right? The second, okay.
And that's still under the $300 currently. So, I guess the only thing that I question is if you're gonna say that only current liquor license holders can get this special license, I don't know that you want to significantly increase the fee, because then they're probably gonna opt for a $300 transfer than to get an additional license,
But they
because
probably would. Here's my thought process on that. Let's use, we got shooters, or we got docks, or we got something, and let's say that the Ducks Unlimited comes in and they say, okay, we want to have this full-blown liquor license out there, and docks in the past, or shooters in the past, have had to close their doors. Now they can leave that open, and there's no food involved or anything like that, but they can transfer that license. So it's just a thought process you guys need to look at. You got a comment, Stanton, you want to make?
Just with regard to follow up on Beth's question, the Department of Revenue has said that in the event the city of Watertown wants to basically eliminate the ability of like a Second Street to transfer out to the extension building and insist that they keep the license at the current location and take out a second one, the Department of Revenue said you can set that rule if you want to. I'm not suggesting you should, but the Department of Revenue says that's permissible if you want to basically eliminate the need for transferring it from Second Street to extension and have to make application for that additional license. The Department of Revenue says you could if you wanted to.
One of the other things this does is it does put the liability issue back on the place that's buying the license, does it not? It puts it to docks or to shooters or Second Street or anybody like that. So the insurance issue is kind of taken care of then.
I guess I'm still don't understand, Steve, what your concern is, why you think it should be higher. Because, we're limiting it to those people that already have a license, so it's not like we open the door up to everybody else and they're taking business away from them.
Well,
We're going higher, yeah.
I would say, I think part of that is because the people that hold those licenses that don't do that, that's competition for them. And I know it's only a 4-day or possibly up to 8 days a year, but you could have several places do that with that same liquor license. And so that, to me, I think there needs to be something there. So like somebody said earlier, it's not frivolous, But I do have another thought, and I don't know if this is the right thing or not, but would we consider for C, looking at that in two different categories, one if it's a for-profit organization or a nonprofit? Because if the number comes down, I don't know what the number's got to be. If it's $1,000, if we'll just say that, if it's $1,000, that's $1,000 right off the top for some nonprofit, somebody that's trying to do something good. Could we consider, was that something we'd want to consider doing? Having for C, maybe half of what we decide on for a nonprofit.
But still keep it, they still have to go to like a current holder. You're saying, okay, I see.
But all I'm saying is, you're not, I don't want to use the word penalizing, but you're not taking that money off the top for somebody that's trying to do good for something.
Can we even do that? Dan? I mean, can we have two different?
So if I understood, yeah, I don't think you should. What I understood is if it's Ducks Unlimited that's piggybacking on Second Street as opposed to Second Street going out on their and having an event on their own, you're suggesting two different fee schemes, and I don't think you can do that.
Why is that? Why couldn't we do that? Is
I
there a legal stance on that, or what's the reasoning that we couldn't do that?
in my mind on C, you're charging the license holder, not, how they turn around and pass that down to the person that they are providing the service to, whether it's Ducks Unlimited or Worth Electric or whoever wants to, Terrex, whoever wants to have that party, that's up to them to come into an agreement on what they're going to charge for those services. At this point, the city just needs to decide how much you're going to charge those license holders to come in and obtain that license, because right now you're proposing they're the only ones who would be able to get C.
So should we keep it the same as it would be if they transferred a license? I mean, if they, that way they can decide if it's, I don't know what, or a little more, if it's more money than well, no, you're right. Why would they want to transfer if they couldn't operate at both places?
Why will this do away with our current process of just transferring? Why wouldn't we do away with that at that point?
the ability to transfer is under state statute, so you couldn't really do away with it, but the idea is that if you tell applicants that come to the counter in the finance office and they say, I want to transfer your license, say the city council won't entertain a transfer application, they will entertain an application for a secondary license.
Well, here's where I'm at on this, and I was just talking to Don. You know, this doesn't happen a lot in the course of a year's time. I don't think, I mean, unless we're looking to raise a whole bunch of money on this deal. But I would propose that we consider $300 for all of them except number 3 on this document up here, and that'd be $500. I don't think it's going to motivate or demotivate people, but it does differentiate if that's what we feel we need.
Is that a motion?
Well, I don't want to shut anybody off on discussion, but if people are at least, otherwise we're going to beat this thing to death, guys. And
I think that's
it
a
just
fair.
seems kinda
I think
crazy
that's
to
a
me.
fair number, Mike. I agree.
So can I?
But now you're taking that guy that pays $300 to transfer his license, and now you're gonna charge him $500.
Stanton, I got a question for you. Where in town can a liquor license be transferred?
Only the places that have been granted a conditional use permit by the Board of Adjustment.
And do you know what locations? There's not many of them,
Well, it's wherever the Board of Adjustment
so the Board of
Yeah,
Adjustments
but
can deem one.
that's not true in
But
Watertown.
the ag building is one that, the ag building is one, correct?
Correct. The extension building's been granted conditional use, as has the city park for certain times during the year.
So so I could transfer a liquor license from any bar in Watertown out to the ag building under this proposal, is that correct?
You could-
Or I could have an event out there, have a second. Right.
Correct.
So if I wanted to have a wedding dance at the ag building, any bar in town could have a license, an additional license to have one out there, correct?
Potentially, twice a year.
Right. So what I'm getting at is you got people in town here, several venues and you're just adding another venue as competition to these current liquor license holders, that they can transfer a liquor license out to the ag building. Because you're even opening it up for even more. Twice a year, but how many liquor licenses do we have in town? You know, but I mean,
Can I comment on that, John? This came up last time we had the discussion. It's a valid point in that if this happens every weekend, then what happens to the existing commercial enterprises that are out there? Now, they can do it now. It's done on a very limited basis. I guess if I see this possibly going through, I guess we need to just be cognizant of that, because if all of a sudden we've got a government building or something else that is holding wedding dances or something every other weekend, well, then what's the incentive for anybody to start a business in town to do that kind of thing when you got to compete against those types of venues? So I guess my resolution in my mind is I like what Mike said. I agree with what John said. We're going to have to watch this because we can do that now. But if that starts happening on a fairly regular basis, then we've got another problem to deal with.
because right now there's no, you have to transfer it from one location to another. You have to shut down where you're at. So there is somewhat of you don't have the benefit. You either go to one place or the other. But now, you could have people doing this on a regular basis and still operate from 2 locations. If everybody did that twice a year, that's.
Well, would it be beneficial to go to 1 time a year versus 2 times a year then?
Well, it's still, how many liquor licenses do we have in town?
It cut it in half.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we don't know how this is gonna pan out. And I think I agree with Don, that we gotta pass something, see how it goes. We can always modify this ordinance if we find that we got issues. We don't have anybody here, throughout this whole process, I haven't seen one person here speaking in favor or against this whole thing and all the discussions that we've had, not one. So I'm wondering how big a concern it is to them. It probably is, but they're not here to discuss it or to voice those concerns. So let's go with something that's reasonable. Do what Don says, they're all gonna come before us. If these things are coming before us on an ongoing basis, then maybe we do need to do something. Whether it be a change in the fee or whether it be a change in the ordinance, but we gotta move on with it, otherwise we're gonna beat it to death here.
Well, with what Steve had said and what John's brought up here, though, you have a certain amount of entities in town. There's a lot of them have liquor license, but there's only so many that have the facilities that would normally handle and those would be the ones that would get penalized, and they've got that property and they're paying taxes on that property, where somebody else can go into a property that's not even being taxed now for little to nothing. I mean, what's $300 on a big event like that? So from that standpoint, I guess I understand. I mean, it's a little bit more conceptually, I get a better handle around it, I
I
think,
guess
so.
my initial feeling on this whole resolution is the insurance liability on it, as it is now. Maybe, guys, we should just leave the rule as is and not change it and allow it to go, the transfer of the license like it was doing all along. We had control of it. The only thing was, we do lose control of the insurance side of it.
You mean don't do any of this?
Don't do any of it. Maybe you don't want to do a thing and leave it as is. And I'm just throwing this out because, I mean, there's a lot of concerns here.
I think, this is actually an opportunity for more tax generation for the city too. And it would allow more events for us to take part in. I think economically, I think it's probably a good thing for us to be able to do that.
Yeah, unless you're in the business.
And I also, the more I think about it, my opinion is we should probably reduce that from 2 to 1.
Now, am I correct in number 4, you said 2, and number 6, A, B, and D are 300, and C at 500? Am I got the right figures in here?
That's what I just threw out for discussion. John, let me ask you a question.
So where are we at?
Is your issue a matter of what that fee amount is, or is your issue the allowance of that transfer?
For issuance, so can operate at both places at one time.
Unfair competition, is that what you
Well, it is, if you look at people, like Bill hit it on the head there, you got people around town with venues, and I'm one of them. I'm kind of in a difficult position here, being on both sides of it. If I'm out of line, Stanton, make sure you tell me, just to zip it.
I think from the perspective, though, of somebody in the business, we need to hear that, and you'd be, Drake, which is an open now, but I mean, Drake, Second Street Station, any of those places that have a property where they can host the things.
A golf course, you got a lot of different places with a liquor license that can hold events. Now you're just adding to a venue, and
Would it be, I was asked by Don to see if I could find communities that have adopted rules that are currently in place. I did find a couple of entities that just flat don't allow for the issuance of special on-sale licenses. So the issue is just eliminated because you have to, like John said, transfer your license from location A to location B and shut your doors. Then there are communities that just don't allow for even though the statute allows for them, they just say that's not a class of license we're going to issue as a special alcohol license to eliminate the concerns that John raised, possibly.
Do we have anything in our current ordinances, how many times they could come and do that transfer now?
No.
Okay, so if you look at it today, I could hold a liquor license in the smallest little building. And today, I could be doing that every weekend if I wanted to, under the current ordinance. And I don't have the capital investment that some of our larger license holders have. So actually, quite honestly, today is a worse scenario than what John's referring to.
And I would add to that when they go to a special event like that, what does the ag building charge them? $300? I mean, the economics are skewed way in favor of that scenario versus going through a commercial entity.
Based on that, it seems the issue is all on the C on the, if we just eliminated that and let the other things handle the way they are, and they go back, anybody that wants to do that for the other events, they still have the same opportunity they had before. If we just take that one out of the picture, we don't have to address it separately here. It's not allowable under this.
But Bill, if I'm the guy that's holding a little place down here that just sells beer and wine, why don't I have the same concern that John does? Same thing,
Well,
it's just different license.
I think the concern is probably the same.
No, I
It's a
don't
huge
see
dollar
it.
amount.
I don't see the same thing, because the one is dealing with an event that they have the property to host for the food or the dance or whatever else it is. The other one is the choice of somebody going to go to, something. If there's going to be a wing fling, there either is or isn't going to be. I don't see that that's taking away from from somebody else's business like I do every time there's a wedding dance or something else like that. I mean, right now, we're saying pretty much everybody could open up and have hold a wedding and then just, and use government property to do it on.
Right, so with the transfers being unlimited, and then the point of being where I have a small building, that it really doesn't hurt me very much to close for Saturday, but I can make more money with that license over at a large event. Could we limit the number of transfers of licenses per year? Is that allowed?
I guess, you know,
All right,
technically,
go back to square one. What initiated this in the very first place that we got to this point of considering an ordinance change?
what initiated it was the realization that this year, moving forward without the council having adopted rules, the chamber would have difficulty getting there. Well, they couldn't on their own come in and get application. You have to set at a minimum the number of times per year that you can get a license and the fees. That's what state law requires. You have to adopt some rules. So absent some rules, this year the chamber is going to have to piggyback on somebody in order to get a license for wing fling. And the same is true for the zoo event that's scheduled, I believe, for June. They simply couldn't come as a standalone entity and request the license because you haven't formally adopted rules.
And my thing on that, Mike, is those two things are going to happen because of people putting them on. It's not like the other people are going to lose something. Either they're going to have that or they're not going to have it. But somebody could have a wedding dance and could choose to go to any place, or we open up the door and anybody can host it with not near the investment that everybody else has got in it. So my proposal is if we just eliminate the C part on the on-sale license and let the other stuff go through, that takes care of what we initially wanted, and we didn't open up a new door to something more that we didn't really, plan on doing.
Okay, but I will tell you, you do understand the downside to that, Bill. And that is, if I own a little establishment that has the classification of license 3, there's no limitations today on how many times I can transfer that.
But don't we have to approve every one of them?
Well, I understand, but what's your basis for denial if you don't have an ordinance to back you up?
But that's nothing different than we have today, and how many times does that happen? I mean, that hasn't, that's not, we didn't change anything that we've already had, and that hasn't really been an issue, but we do have these, for example, right now, those two things, how do we handle those two things if we don't put something through, and without disturbing the rest of the, the rest of the process? We're not allowing them to open up any more than we did. That's just my thing right now. If we just eliminated, because that's all of our discussion has been protecting the on-sale license people, and we're not taking anything away from them by eliminating them out of this, but we're just making it a little bit more straightforward for the other things. John?
In the interest of progress, I could agree to what Bill said, understanding that number 3 probably not gonna go away. But we're not changing that one. That stays status quo as it is for now. But in the interest of progress, we could approve the other ones, understanding we may have to wrestle with that one again. Is that a fair statement?
Okay. Well, we've had a lot of discussion. I don't know if we've come up with any answers.
We've had a motion, and I guess we need to know whether we have to change that motion or
Well,
draw it back or what, so.
I haven't actually made a motion. It was just a,
Yeah, it was a suggestion. I
Just
think
for
we
discussion purposes.
we do need to make a motion and a second, and it will have to include number 4, whether you're gonna go with 2 or 1. On number 6, if you're looking at the 3, 3, 5, and 3, as far as dollar amounts on that. So if someone wants to make a motion.
Just based on what I was saying, my motion would be number 4, we would go ahead and stay with the 2. The A, B, and D, somebody fill in the blank on the dollars, and the C goes away.
Okay, so
Yeah, well, I'll make the motion. I guess, do we want that to be 300 then on the other?
300
On
on
the
A, B, and D.
In A, B, and
what's
D.
your time, frequency, and days?
Well,
Up to the
it's,
15?
I guess we haven't argued to that point. We just had up to 15. It still has to come before us for approval anyway. So if we have an issue with the length of it based on what's going on, we can say, no, we're not
They
going
can
to allow
have
that.
two licenses? Is that what you're?
Yeah, or I guess if we want to, I'll stipulate that, I mean, I changed my motion if somebody wants to limit it to one. I'm okay with limiting it to one, quite honestly.
I don't have a problem with going to two if we're gonna do that, if we're gonna eliminate. C's the one where I had issue with the number, with the quantity.
I'd like
My
to see
point is,
limited.
Bill, is I think you need to state very specifically what your motion is gonna include, what
Yep.
you want it to be.
Okay.
Then we can
I'd
have
like to
discussion.
see that limit to 7 days, because if you put it 15 days, they, in all reality, could have 2 events for one cost. If they got 2 events back to back, which could easily happen, so.
Well, he's talking about 2 weekends. If 15 days, you could have 2 weekends.
And I think that, I think those days would be set when they come to the council. It does say on here up to 15 days, but you would be able to, as a council, say, no, you can't have that.
Or
event
could we
more
have
than
15
3
days per event? It
or
would,
4,
would
right.
clear that, so.
Yeah, it would be very.
Question, where did the 15 days come from? Did you have a?
State statute.
Okay.
It's right out of state law.
But if we put 15 days per event, would we be
It's just,
fine?
it says not, the license can be issued for an amount of time not to exceed 15 days.
Okay,
So-
and we still have the authority to limit that. So, okay, so my motion is to leave the 15 days 2 times per year, A, B, and C at $300, and D goes away.
No, A, B.
Or A, B, and D, yeah,
A,
and C goes away.
Okay. So I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Second.
So it's motion by Bill, second by Mike. And any
Yep,
further discussion?
I want to recuse myself from this vote as a employee of a liquor license holder.
Okay,
The only question I have is number 4 is 2,
yes,
number 6 is A, B, and D are 300,
yes.
and C is 500.
No, C is not an option. C goes away, it's not an option.
That's gone.
Okay.
Yep. C's off the table. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, I'm looking for council action. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Wow, we got through that.
Didn't take long at all, did it?
I thought we were gonna be out of here at 10 after 12. All right, guys. Any other business you need to bring before the council? Hearing none, I ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mike, second by Beth. All those in favor? We're out of here.